Hey guys, Terry Red here, and in this video, I'm going to be doing something I haven't done in a long time. I'm going to be doing a giant ass tutorial video. In this video, we're going to be showing you how to take a new all-in-one example table that JLou and myself have combined efforts to create that will easily allow you to quickly add the following to a Future Pinball table all in one shot. FizX, the newest FizX physics, FLEEP sounds, so all mechanical sounds for the whole table, ball rolling sounds, PUP and PUP SSF support, so surround sound feedback, and DOF support, so direct output framework for cabinet feedback and lighting. So this is going to be a way to add all of that in one shot to any Future Pinball table quickly and easily with basically one giant section of code, a couple small snippets after that, adding the sounds needed, the new models needed, and then after that, boom, it's up and running very quickly. All the stuff after that, adjusting the table specific stuff, adding things specific that are different for each table. That takes time, but the bottom line is I'm going to be showing you how to do all that in one video. And I don't know how long this video is going to go. This is not scripted. This is not edited. I'm just going to start from scratch and do it the same way you guys would do it. I've created a new tutorial that I'm going to show you here. I'm going to follow that tutorial, and I'm going to do it the same way you guys would have to. It's shockingly simple and easy to do. Compared to before, and I've done this stuff on Visual Pinball and Future Pinball, and it's never been this simple before. This is like shockingly easy to do. And the fact that I'm going to do pretty much almost everything, for the most part, in one video, it's going to be crazy. So again, this could be like a 1 hour video or a 2 hour video, but you have to understand, adding the stuff is quick. It's all the stuff that comes after that takes time for me to explain, for me to show you, to go back and forth to show you what it did or didn't do. So I'm going to have chapters in this video, so if you see this as a giant long ass video, don't freak out. Don't be like, oh, Terry Red is at it again. You can take this in pieces as you need to, okay? And then you can do a table as you want and then follow along. It'll be all split up. It's super easy to do. Yeah, it's amazing. So after that intro, I'm going to explain what all is going to be added to a table using this tutorial. So simply put, well, here I'll explain what has happened in the last bit. JLou, who created FizX, FizX physics system for Future Pinball. For those who don't know, FizX is a new method of adding physics to Future Pinball that has adapted N-Fuzzy physics from Visual Pinball, and it's adapted that to Future Pinball to literally completely change Future Pinball's physics. The old days of Future Pinball physics being wonky are gone. The flippers are awesome. Rubbers are like much better. Slings are realistic. It completely transforms the table, and that's what we're going to do in this video. I'm going to show you the before and after, and it's going to be like, wow, you'll be blown away. So yeah, he's basically updated FizX physics to version 2 just in the last couple weeks. So now I'm like, oh man, I was ready to move on to working on Silent Hill and other stuff, but this just came out, and lots of new features. Uses way less CPU than before, much more optimized code. We don't need an 8K ball model like we did before. We can use a 1K ball model for all tables, and they'll just automatically work, no hassle. And it's running at 512 FPS or 256, the native FPS, if you want, instead of the 592 and 296. So that's just this stuff here I just mentioned, But the bigger thing that he added was what's called dynamic ball hit sounds. So what I mean by that is when it comes to surround sound feedback or mechanical sound feedback that you have in these pinball tables in Visual Pinball and Future Pinball, that's not automatic stuff, guys. Like, we have to manually add all that stuff. Or should I say, we used to. Now, with this new code that JLou has added to FizX, which is using brand new features from BAM that just got added, thanks to Ravercade, awesome stuff. JLou asked him to add these things, and he did it right away. Now, FizX is able to know all ball hits at all times, at whatever speed it's using, and whatever item material that is being collided with at all times in Future Pinball. So in other words, if the ball hits wood or metal or plastic or rubber or flippers or an apron or the play field, metals, whatever, it knows all that, and it knows the speed that it's going all that, and FizX automatically uses all that information to output feedback sounds, dynamic ball hit sounds based on the materials that it's hitting. Automatically. Before, we used to have to add triggers or various things around the table to make this stuff happen the way the way we wanted. Whereas now it's all automatic, and it's not just on the nice selected sound spots we picked. It's the entire table automatically. It's fantastic, guys. Huge difference in sound. Not for regular Future Pinball sound, so no SSF, you get the benefit. But also, because of this, I adapted and updated pin events code, my PinMechSound code that I use to control SSF, DOF, and Future Pinball sounds in my pin event tables. I updated that code to work with this new feature in FizX, so now it will also automatically output all those ball hit sounds to SSF positionally on the entire playfield where they're hit automatically. So the position they hit automatically translates to SSF. No extra code, no extra triggers, nothing needed for me whatsoever. Excuse me. It just works. It's freaking awesome, guys. It completely makes the sound in the table transform. It's so awesome. For mechanical feedback, rubbers, all that kind of stuff. Now, for things like slings and rubbers, or sorry, slings, flippers, bumpers, table controlled items, we still have to like manually add commands for that. And I'll also be doing that in this video and, showing you how PinMechSound can now be used. Because not only did I update that for Pin Event V2, but that's what I used to also apply to a new section of code that I added to this new all-in-one table. I took JLou's example table and I added all those updated features from Pin Event related to SSF, DOF, Future Pinball mechanical sounds, and I created a new ball rolling code that automatically works for PUP SSF and Future Pinball. No extra stuff added throughout the table like we had to do before using the old smoke rolling ball code methods. This is just all automatic. It just paste it in and boom, it works. It's friggin' awesome, guys. Saves so much work and it just works. It is super cool for those of us who have to update tables. And now you guys can do this quite easily. So now we have a new table example for you guys to use. Not Pin Event. It's a standalone set of code that will give those similar features for you guys. And it just works. It's awesome. So that's what we're doing in this video. I know that's a lot of explaining, but that's all the stuff we're doing. All these we're adding. We're adding the FizX Tweaker Tool as well automatically, so that way you can use that to adjust physics dynamically while you're playing the table, So yeah, FizX will be added. FizX Tweaker Tool will be added. FLEEP sounds will be added automatically for Future Pinball sound and surround sound feedback. Direct output framework. It will be automatically added, and you'll get a basic, solenoid feedback as well automatically. Just a basic set of DOF. Nothing, no lights or anything fancy like that. That stuff you have to do yourself. Pin-up player will automatically be added for SSF, but also PUP packs. If you want to make a basic PUP pack, you just go ahead and do it like you normally would. That's already added in. That surround sound feedback, obviously from PUP, that will just work. And then the Future Pinball sounds and PinMechSound, all that's is going to be automatically added by doing this tutorial. So I know that's a lot of explanation, but I can't jump into something this huge without kind of explaining it all. So we're gonna jump into this, guys. Like, this is gonna be a long video, but you know what? Like, it's gonna be easy to follow, and once you go through it once, dude, you'll realize just how easy this is to do compared to before. Oh man, this stuff was so much more work before. So this is gonna be awesome, man. So all right, so let's just jump into it. So what I'm gonna have the link for this tutorial in the description. Before we start though, I want to make it clear that tutorials like this in a video are always out of date. So whatever you do, follow the written tutorial on this site that I linked to. It will get updated regularly over time. This video won't always be exact to whatever that is showing. But the whole point is you're using the video as a visual aid to help you see the differences and other things along the way, you know. So use both together, okay? So don't just go by this video. That's my disclaimer in every video, every single one of them. So you come to this page and you are going to start here and you're going to go past all this initial stuff here at the top and you're going to come down to the table tutorial. We're going to start here and it's going to say, tell you what's required. What's required is you'll download the all-in-one example table and file zip. It'll include the 1K PhysX ball, which we will install. It will require BAM 1.357 as of this video's posting or higher. That may change in the future, but as of now, that is the minimum requirement. Always see what it says on this tutorial guide here. Now, optional extras. Well, if you have DOF on the cabinet, then you obviously install DOF. If you want PUP for PUP SSF or making your own PUP packs, then you need to install PinUp Player, right? So the links are here for that. If you want to install those, they are not, as I say here, required. They are not required to use this. They are not required to add it. They are not required to test it. They are not required for anyone else to play these tables. These tables are standalone. They don't use external files, external scripts, or external apps just to run. If you want to use those extra features, it will check for them. If they exist, if you have those programs installed, then it'll make use of them. If they are not installed or it can't detect them, it will automatically disable those features and just use normal Future Pinball functions like any other Future Pinball table. So these are standalone tables. Nothing extra needed just to use them. I want to make that clear because a lot of people think pin event tables require DOF and PUP just to run. They don't. Anybody can use a pin event V2 table, and we are adding similar functions to this. However, I'm going to make clear what this tutorial will not be doing. It will not add all the same pin event features to a table. It will not be adding PUP DMD or PUP Stream. That's way beyond what we're doing in a video like this. When you do add this to a table, you are not creating a pin event table. A pin event table are my own releases only. They have a very complex and very wide feature set that cover a lot of things way beyond what we're doing in this video. So I just want to make that clear. Pin event is only used on my tables. The name is only used on my tables. I don't want any confusion. You can use the code that for all this for whatever you want. Just please don't call it a pin event table because I don't want people confusing what I make and release with, you know, what this is being used with. You know, use this in any table. Call it what you want. Just don't call it a pin event table because it's not pin event. You know, it's a huge difference. I'm not going to go into the details of all the settings for FizX. This is going to be a long video. You know, this tutorial will have a link to more guides from JLou about FizX settings and all that, you know, at a later time. So just look for that on this page at some point, you know, in the future. But for now, I'm not going to do that in this video. I'll go through the basics, what you need, but not super crazy. And I'm not going to tell you how to be able to update every single Future Pinball table. They're all going to be different. They're all going to be affected different. They're all going to require different things to modernize them properly to allow some of these updates to work correctly. You got to throw away all the old and embrace all the new for this stuff to work right. So some of you guys who did things the old ways, you're going to have to discard those. And as Yoda said, you must unlearn what you have learned and embrace the new, and then you'll have a modernized table that will play better, sound better, and be way cooler. Okay? So now that we've got all that stuff out of the way, we're going to start. We're going to start this tutorial. We're going to start updating a table to be updated with all these awesome features of FizX, FLEEP sounds, ball rolling, PUP SSF, and DOF using the all-in-one example table that I will share with you today in this video. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to download. We're going to start here. Okay, this is where it starts. And then we're going to do everything in order, guys. Okay, it's important. Okay, so first thing we do is download our all-in-one example table. All right, we're going to download it. This may change in the future, so don't worry about that. And I'm going to save it just here. Save it wherever you want, doesn't matter. And I'm going to go to where it's at. So this is my file that I just downloaded. Close that here. And I'm going to bring this over here. And we'll follow along that way. There we go. So here's my file. So what I like to do is I like to extract it using 7-zip. Always use 7-zip. It's just better overall. And it's free. So I like to extract it with the same folder name as the zip file. So just do that. All right. There you go. All-in-one example table. So these are our files, just like we see in the picture. This may change in the future, but you know these are the essential files as of this posting. So we have our files that we need. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to install the 1K FizX ball. Now you may already have this installed. You know, like versions of Baller Installer are eventually going to have this stuff included with newer updates, or you may have already installed it with one of my pin event tables or who knows what. But bottom line is, if you're not sure, install it anyway. So what we are going to do is we are going to install this to be used automatically with all tables. I highly recommend doing it that way, because if we install it per table, what happens is if you change the table file name at all, then the 1K ball model will no longer work with that table. You know, they have to match exactly. So what I recommend doing is we go in here and we copy this guy. And it has instructions here if you're still not sure. And we're going to paste it to my BAM folder here, okay? So the way BAM works is if it can't find a zip file, oh, hold on, make sure it's named right. So we're going to name this default.zip, okay? Make sure it's correct. All right, good. So what BAM does is it checks for a zip file named the same as the table with the table file, wherever it's located. If there is no such zip file, then it would default back to the BAM folder and look for a default zip file. And if that exists, whatever is in this file, it will load and replace any of Future Pinball's assets with whatever's in this file. So in other words, all of Future Pinball's default assets, the ball model, the cabinet models, the game room models, you know, all sorts of things are, you know, completely replaceable in one zip file when you use BAM. You could do it per table, or you could just have it done for the entire, for all tables by default, right? So you can have the textures replaced, you can have the ball model replaced, you know. So in this case, this is just the ball model that we're replacing here. That's all we're doing. So when all tables get loaded, it will use this file and replace our ball model, which by default is only using 300 polygons. What this file does is it unlocks that same ball to use the 1000 polygons that the actual model uses, because the hitbox by default is like only a 300 polygon ball model. So this one unlocks that, and we use 1000 instead. All right. So I know it's a bit of an explanation, but bottom line is do that and you'll have less problems. Okay. So now the next step, if you are using PUP SSF, not required, but if you are, then you go into PUP SSF files and you will copy the PUP pack. This is the PUP pack here, and it tells you right here, copy this to your PUP videos folder. So I'm not sure if I have, no, I don't. Okay, so, all right, and we'll go to our Pinup system folder. This is where Pinup Player and Popper are installed, and we go to our PUP video folder, and there we go. Now I already have one here. You know, this is where all the PUP packs are for Pinup Player, for Future Pinball, Visual Pinball, but I'll just copy it in there anyway. And you'll see these are the basic config files, and these are all our FLEEP sounds that are used with PUP surround sound feedback. Okay, that's all it is. It's just a bare bones PUP pack that has just PUP packs or PUP sounds in it that we use for FLEEP sound and surround sound feedback and for ball rolling. Okay, so that's installed. All right. Okay, so we've got our files installed, our extra files installed that we need. So now, the next part is really important, guys. Prepare the new table that you're going to use correctly. What I mean by that is, a lot of Future Pinball tables over the years have had various different updates or workarounds to kind of work around the older physics or work around, or to add ball rolling sounds in code or various different things. You're going to need to remove all that if it has it. Not all tables will, but if it has it, you need to remove that stuff because we're going to be adding our own stuff on there. So remove the physics, any physics related codes. That would be Z physics, and the Z flipper models would have to be replaced with normal flipper models. If it's a Z physics table, I've never touched one, so I honestly don't know. If it's one that has DF1 dynamic flipper physics, so some of my older mods had that before PinEvent V2. Some of them had that because that was before, basically anything before FizX. Anything that doesn't have FizX physics, if it has any form of physics upgrades or code or anything added to it, that has to be removed. Whether it's in models, code, all of it has to be removed so it's back to normal. And the ballroom code. Then save that table file and test it first. Get it normal as much as you can. Because if you don't check that and you add all this new stuff, and then you're getting a bunch of errors, well, then you're like, well, that terror red's full of crap, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, Make sure your table's good to go before you start adding this stuff, okay? So that's a disclaimer. Make sure your table's good. So now we're going to start adding files to the table itself, okay? But before we do that, I'm going to just load up, two tables actually. We're going to have our table that we're going to be modifying, which is going to be the OG. You heard me right. Sci-fi Classic, the very first official released Future Pinball table in 2005. It doesn't get more, original than that. So I'm like, I've never touched this table before, so I'm like, why not? Let's try doing it. I'm doing this on the fly, just like you guys would. So I don't really know what I'm in for here. So this is what we're going to be updating. It's Sci-fi Classic. So I got that open. It's ready to go. No ball rolling or physics or anything changes. It's just a plain Jane Future Pinball table, right? So now I'm going to open up our all-in-one table, okay? I'm going to open that into a separate Future Pinball window. Now, we'll change this in the future as we go along, but for now, we're going to have them side by side for comparison, okay? All right, so this is our original table that we are going to be using to update. All right, this is OG, man. It doesn't get more OG than this. So I'm going to just check the volume levels. Okay, so I got the volume turned down, and I got the music completely down. Okay, good. All right, so just to give you guys an idea of how this thing played before. Okay. Oh, wow, look how floaty that ball is. Woo! All right, there. I'll turn the music up just for the sake of it. So I'm just doing this just so you can see what it plays like right now. Okay, this is with the original Future Pinball physics. It's very slow, now maybe that was the intent of the table, but, pretty slow, pretty floaty. Maybe it was meant to be kind of like a weird, sort of like an 80s table that was not super crazy, but you can see, very, very, very slow, very simple. The flipper physics physics all around are just all over the place. And, graphically, it's old. It doesn't have any new fan features or anything, And you can see, man, look at those, everything is just low-powered. Oh, wow. Yeah, let's see if I can trap. Now, the flippers, you can see, there's no, there's no micro flips or anything like that. It's all just full power on, full power off. Very minimal physics. I'm just trying to get this damn ball down here so I can like maybe try doing something with it, but wow, okay, geez. Man. Woo! Okay, yeah, it's not gonna be like this. Oh yeah, okay. See, there's that wide shot. Every time you do a shot in Future Pinball with the original physics, every time you do, it shoots super wide off the flipper tip. Yeah, see, look at that. Oh my gosh, I haven't played that for so long. Even I can't stand it. Man. Okay, so that's what we're working with. Ooh, boy, that's kind of brutal. Oh, man. Wow, I haven't tried like an older OG Future Pinball table without newer physics in a while, and that's rough. I'm not gonna lie. So this is our new example table as example. Now this is not ultra dialed in with perfect physics. It's more about copying from the code, the models, and everything, and just to give you an idea, what they'll kind of be like. So you're going to hear all the dynamic sounds playing, and you're going to see, that the ball moves differently. Again, this is not a full table. It's just kind of just to give you basic functions to compare to. All right, hold on. Let's try that there. All right. So you can see we can do micro flip. You can hear the sounds. It's a big difference in sound. This is using PUP SSF, if I do believe. Yes. And the way I can tell that is if I turn the sound all the way down. Okay. So yeah. So PUP SSF is separate from Future Pinball's volume. That's how I can tell the difference. Okay. So you're gonna notice every time it hits something, you're gonna hear dynamic sounds all over the place. So you can hear that when it drops. Every material it hits. You can hear the ball rolling. Now I got this cranked, so it's not. It doesn't always have to be this loud, but that's just how it is currently. Because this is PUP SSF is normally used with cabinets, but you can adjust it. And listen to that. Every single sound you can hear bouncing off something. So much better. All right, I'm just trying to trap that ball a little. Yeah, you don't get any of that with a Future Pinball table unless you're adding this stuff to it. So. Alright, I gotta stop playing. So yeah, so I mean, you can see, you can hear the difference right off the bat. Like listen to all those sounds. Like, you know what I mean? Like everything. Like if I hit the rubber, if I hit the metals, depending on how I hit all this stuff, all of it, every single last bit of it will automatically generate sounds. Slings will automatically, or not automatically, but properly allow a ball to roll down them without flying off. Whereas before, it would always do that. The bumpers are better. Like they're more consistent. We have different bumper models, and you can see the ball is way heavier. Now I did a live catch there. That was a lucky one there. But you could do live catches if you catch it just right, which I suck. But yeah, there you go. Okay. So I just wanted to show a little bit of the difference between the two. You can hear the ball rolling too. It'll change based on the speed and all sorts of things. So yeah, I mean, so it's an example table. It's not going to be the ultimate, in terms of, yes, these are the perfect physics reference, but it's an example to give you an idea, because every table will be different. Everyone's preferences will be different. I've given some of the stuff I've done on Future Pinball to some visual pinball guys who are very good with physics, and each one of them can say they love it, but they each have their own preferred settings that can drastically be different. So, you know what I mean? You can give a good base, but not everyone will be happy. That's all I'm trying to say. So, you have a reference from both. So, now that we have that, we are going to start to add all our stuff to our table. So, first thing we're going to do is add our PhysX models. So we'll go here, click Model Manager, I mean, and I'll just go back to the main folder here so that you can see. This is where our files are. So our PhysX models are all in here, okay, guys? So we're just going to add everything in each folder. That's it. So just add those guys. Add those guys. Add those guys. All right. And that's all we need to add for what we're doing here, for the models. So now we're going to import our sounds. So we're going to go to Sound Manager first. And we're going to import a whole bunch of sounds. So this is our files. So we would go to the FLEEP sounds folder. And we would first go into the first one, table sounds. So these are the normal mechanical dynamic sounds we'll be using on the table. And the normal like flippers and that kind of thing. So we're going to go in here. Now you're going to see, at least as of this time, they're all separated into folders. The reason why is Future Pinball is lame and it only will import 30 files at a time. If you try to import any more than that, it'll just ignore all the files you selected and you won't even realize it doesn't tell you anything. It just doesn't do anything. It just pretends like it imported them, but nothing actually happens. So I separated all these files into folders. Thank Gimli for that. He's the one who suggested doing that to make it easier. So just add all the files in each folder. So just go to each one. So that was 1. This is 2. This is 3. We'll do 4. Now I'll tell you guys, with me not talking, it doesn't take long to add all this stuff, like to import all the essentials. Like I can have everything added, ready to go in like under 5 minutes. Now, that's not saying the table's done in 5 minutes. I'm saying I could have everything I need added in under 5 minutes, including code, everything. It's a lot quicker than you realize. Okay, so that was the initial FLEEP sounds, the first one, right? Now we have to add our ball rolling sounds. So we do that in Music Manager, okay? Because ball rolling sounds are adjusted nonstop while the table plays. Like they technically, as soon as the ball's created, are always going. You just don't hear them when the ball stops, right? But the ball rolling is technically always a looping sound that's going nonstop. So we're just going to add all those to Music Manager. There we go. And I just want to point out there's a third folder of FLEEP sounds that says complete. Though you don't add those in unless you are needing them for extra stuff you add onto the table that this example table doesn't have. Like these are all the FLEEP sounds in here, all of them, right? So you'd only add what you need for any additional extra mechanical sounds and actions that you're adding to the table or updating on the table, right? All right, so we have that. So now we're going to import our textures. So let's go to the texture manager. We'll import what we need for that. So this is our files here. So you'll go to invisible textures. So these are going to be, we'll import both of these. These are just commonly used with a lot of items so that you can't see them. Like a lot of items you can just tell Future Pinball to not render it or to make it invisible, but some items it doesn't give you that option. So you get around that by just adding an invisible Targa image, TGA. So that way it just renders it invisible. So that's what we use that for. All right, so at this point, we've got our files in. I'd save. So I'm going to save this as... Here, I'll do that. Sci-fi Classic FizX V2. Yeah, we'll do that. Sure, why not? All right, yeah, cracking my knuckles. Okay, so we've got our essentials added to the table. So now we can start making changes to our table. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to change the slope in the Future Pinball editor. Now, whatever you may or may not have used in the past, throughout this whole process, guys, whatever you are used to using, ignore it. Do what I'm showing you. do what is needed for a physics upgrade, because everything is tuned in a very specific way. So if you used to use, say, 7 for a table slope, you can't do that anymore. You have to start between 5 or 6, because all the other physics need to match. Otherwise, the table is going to play very strangely. Okay? So in this case, it's already at 6, but we're going to do it at 5.5. And you're going to find that when we're done adding the physics and all that, that it's not going to be slow and floaty like it was before. It's going to be more like the example table. So even though our slope is even less than it was before, right? So that tells you just how much of a difference there is. All right, so now we're going to create a timer called ball rolling update timer. We can just do a copy from there. You can add it wherever you want. I like to tend to keep it out of the way. I like to have similar things grouped together if possible. All right, you just add that there. You can do, well, it doesn't matter what you add it to, honestly, because we're just going to enable and disable and set the time anyway. All right, so now we're going to create a HUD DMD that's used with the FizX Tweaker Tool. All right, so again, the FizX Tweaker Tool, oh, actually, yeah, I'm going to move this guy over here. So the FizX Tweaker Tool is what you can have display. It's a DMD that you can have pop up that will basically allow for you to change settings in real time while you're playing the table. So what I just did, just so you know, I selected a HUD DMD. It has to be a HUD DMD, and we'll put this on the translate. Okay, so that way, because that's where you have to put HUD DMDs to display. This box here on the translate editor is actually what is shown on your desktop mode view. In the upper corners, anything that's in here will show when that mode is running. So we are going to change this and name it as FizX DMD. Make sure there's no extra spaces. Actually, you can't have spaces. And that's one thing. If you put something with spaces and you name it with spaces, Future Pinball won't tell you that it's not going to use it. It'll just kind of ignore it, and then you won't realize it didn't rename it. So double check, click on it again, and make sure the name is correct. Okay. Now keep in mind, these names could change in the future if the tutorial changes. I may use a different version of the tweaker tool in the future. But again, just follow the written tutorial first. If what I say in this video is different than what you see in the written tutorial, follow the written tutorial every time. Okay. All right. So here, I'll save that again just for the sake of doing it. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to copy our code from one table to another. So this is the bulk of the magic of what we're. Well, I don't have to do that much, but what we're adding. So basically, you go to your new table, and you have to go under Option Explicit, okay? And for our example table, we open that up, and you're going to see a lot of the similar instructions at the top here that the tutorial has, just a much more simplified version of it, okay? And we're going to go down here under Option Explicit, and we're going to start at this spot here where it says Copy all code to another table, start here, just like it says in here. And we are going to select everything from that point all the way down to copy all code to another table and here. Okay? So just to visually show you, it's a lot. So it's going to go wee all the way down to here. Okay? So you can do that a couple ways. It doesn't take long. It's very simple. It's not hard. So what I do is I just left click and drag a little bit to start selecting. But then I let go, and I hold my shift button. And then when you push the down arrow key, it'll start selecting. But the quick way of doing it is just push the page down while holding down shift. So page down, and just keep doing it again and again and again and again and again. And just go wee all the way down. And nope, we still got more. There we go. Look at that. See, copy all code to another table and here. And that's it. And then you let go of shift, and then you just go up here, copy, go here, paste. That's it. We now have the essential main code copied to the table. All in one shot. All that complicated stuff that's controlling everything automatically is all there for you. You don't have to paste it in various different locations. We have just a little bit we have to do that for the slingshots, but not much else. So keep following. So now it mentions that if your table uses sub draw frame tick, which I'm going to tell you 99% of them will not. Most of the ones that use anything like that will be either from me or Gimli, most likely. Maybe Wild. I don't know. I don't think George uses any of those, but yeah. So bottom line is, if your table uses that function, that sub, you're going to have to copy or merge everything you have in that sub with this one used here for FizX, because FizX uses sub draw frame tick to update the ball velocity. Now, sub draw frame tick, basically that is a subroutine that updates every frame of your display. So in other words, I'm running at 60 hertz right now. So that means it's going to update everything that's inside this sub 60 times a second. Okay? If you had a monitor that was running at 120 hertz, then it would update at 120 times a second. Okay? So any code, if this exists in your table, it may not. Any code that's like this, make sure you merge it all together, because you only want one of these subs. If you have multiple ones, then you're going to have weird things going on, or you may get errors. Okay? All right. All right, so there's some extra code for the tweaker tool if you want to use it. If you don't want to use it, you don't have to do this step, but if you want to use it, then here's what you got to do. So you're going to go up to the FizX Tweaker Tools section, or FizX Tweaker section, I should say. So we'll just you can copy and use, fine to do it quicker if you want, kind of thing. But it's just right here, so I'm not worried about that. So here's the FizX Tweaker section right here. Okay, so we've already done what it's told us to do in terms of we've added a HUD. All right. You may have to add this font here, which is what this line is using. If your table doesn't have it, most tables do, but some don't. If you don't have it, the bottom line is it's for the text on the DMD to display correctly. If the text looks weird and garbled, then you can just load the Future Pinball new table. Just create a new table, and then that font is in that table. You can export that font and then re-import it into whatever table you're working on to use with the tweaker tool. Okay, so we've already done that, and we've already got the tweaker code already as part of this copied in. So all you got to do is copy this. Okay. All right, and then you're going to copy that, and then you're going to copy it to this sub here. Okay. You're just going to find that sub, and it's right here. This is where anything that happens when you press keys goes on in here. Okay, so because we use keys to make changes on the tweaker tool, we add that here. Okay, and that's it. So all these changes will happen with the up, down, left, right arrow key, and you'll toggle the tweaker tool with the F key. All right. And then there's going to be one other section here that you don't have to add, but it's here. It's called the FizX Profile section. So if you want to be able to cycle between the different profiles, then you could also add this to the same section. Okay? Oops, sorry. Let me go back there. So we can add that to the bottom. And there you go. So now we're all set for the tweaker tool and for our tweaker toggle, profile toggler, profile cycler, I mean. Jeez. Yeah. So those are features you don't have to use, but they are there if you want to make adjustments in real time. The physics for testing purposes, and then, once you are happy with your settings, then you can apply those back to main thing. And if you want to enable those tools later on down the line, you would go to the FizX testing tools section here, and then you enable them by setting these to true. Make your changes to the table. When you're done making changes, you set these back to false because you don't want anyone accidentally changing them with their F and G key, right? All right, so that is now set. So at this point, we would normally start making changes to the flippers. My recommendation would be first, save your table. All right, and I would, I would do a quick check to be sure that your flippers are named as they should be, which is left flipper and right flipper. What they're telling you here is that they must be named, as I just said. Keep in mind that if you rename anything here, you have to be sure that whatever the original name was is changed in the table script as well. So if this flipper was called like L flipper, well then when I change it to left flipper, I'm gonna have to go in here and change every L flipper to left flipper everywhere so that it works correctly, because FizX needs the code. The code needs these names so that it knows what flippers are what and it can work with it, okay? So keep that in mind. When you rename something, when you're told to in FizX, you have to make sure that whatever is in the table script code matches with the new name, okay? So keep that in mind. So, now that I know my flippers are matching names right now, I would just do a quick check just to make sure that the table is going to work, right? So let's just run it. Okay, so the table's running. It's not messing up, so that's good. No errors. That's important. You kind of want to periodically check certain things at some points so that you can backtrack in case you screwed something up, right? All right, so now that we know the table is working at least up to this point, now we can do our flippers. So we've checked to make sure that they're named correctly as right flipper and left flipper, just like they are here. Now, they tell you to compare it to the example table, and that's what we'll do. So, all right. So what you're going to do is you're going to look at the settings they use, and you're going to make sure they're the same. So, you want to make sure this is set to intermediate, and you want it to be in the center. All right? Now, the only thing that may be different for now is this guy here. All right? You could start at minus 48. That's what the example table code is using by default. However, if you don't want to use that angle, then you can change it to whatever you want. I, however, recommend, just like it tells you here, between 48 to 52. Okay? Now, I find 50 to be a nice in between. I like trying the middle ground. Okay, so I'm going to change it to minus 50. Okay, and 50 here. All right, and make sure this is the same and the same. All right, we'll compare them. And there you go, intermittent 48. Now the start angle can be whatever you want. The start angle is not as relevant, but I'll put it at 240. Why not? Okay, and this one at 120. Those are kind of more in line with modern pins. Okay. All right. So now that we know this is set, it's very, 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 very important that we follow the next steps. Okay. So now, for the flippers, we are going to go to the FizX table settings code. Okay, so this is going to be this guy here, the most important one when it comes to flippers in the whole darn shababi here. So you'll scroll down. Actually, okay, so just so you can see here, This is where our physics system code starts. Here's the top of the table, right? On our new table with the new code copied in. And we'll scroll down, scroll down, scroll down. It's not that far down. Physics system, and it starts here, okay? I'll explain a little bit more about some of this stuff later on, but the bottom line is we are using FizX Profile 1. That's what this means here. And this chart here explains to you that if you're using FizX Profile 1, then the PhysiX FPS has to be 512. So we are at Profile 1, and this has to be 512 here, okay? And it explains it to you here as well. It describes it all. I'm showing you this because that way you know where you have to go based on what we're using by default, okay? So since we are using PhysiX Profile 1, and by default this is all set up automatically, so you shouldn't have to change it. We then go down to where the settings are for PhysiX Profile 1. PhysX, sorry. And it's down here. It's all in the subroutine, PhysiX Profile 1 settings, okay? So we have to make sure that this guy is still 512. As it says, it needs to match what is in PhysiX XML FPS, which, as we know, it is, okay? So that means that the table is going to use all of these settings in this subroutine because that's the profile we're using. So all these you can leave alone by default as a starter, except for one single thing you have to make sure is correct. That is the swing angle. This has to match exactly what it is in the Future Pinball editor for the flippers that you are using. Now, we've got settings for the main flippers here, and we've got additional flippers down here if you have like upper flippers or small, additional ones beyond the normal ones, right? So you would change the settings for any flippers you have here. In our case, we changed our swing angle to 50, right? Right there, 50 and 50, okay? And minus 50. If you do not do that, then you're going to get the flippers acting really bizarre, okay? So this is the most important thing you absolutely have to have right. This and this and this and that. As a start, you have to have those correct, no matter what. If you don't, you'll have problems. Things will get wonky. All right, so we are set for that. We're not going to change any other settings for now. These are good for a starting point. We'll maybe go into more detail possibly later in the video, but this is going to be a long video, so I don't know, man. All right, so now that that's all done, and this section here talking about PhysiX XML settings, that's already what I just talked about. The profile, the XML, making sure it's all matching, right? I might actually rearrange this to make that first because that makes more sense actually. So now that we have confirmed all that is good, I would save this, okay? Now, you can have a choice of continuing on and doing more, or you can do a quick test to make sure the table's actually, running decently and, is it going to operate correctly, in terms of the flippers only. Because I want to show you because you're going to see there's a difference, okay? All right, so we're going to start the table. All right, so right off the bat, I can tell PUP SSF is working because that's loud, right? Like, I'm going to turn the sound all the way down. To do that, it's the home and page up, page down keys, okay? So I'm going to turn the sound all the way down. Let's see if it's a Future Pinball sound or if it's not. It might not be. Okay, yep, it is. So there we go. All right, so see, yeah. So the flipper sounds are still Future Pinball sounds. We haven't done anything with that yet. But we are hearing the automatic ball hitting sounds working already. That code's working right off the bat. So watch, like if I bring the ball up here, you can hear the ball rolling. And when it hits the walls, every time it's working right off the bat. So you're not going to hear, when I launch this, you're not going to hear the flippers going off and you're not going to hear slings or bumpers going off, but you're going to hear other mechanical sounds. Now see, look at it. Now see what I mean though? All the physics are going to be super wonky right now because we haven't adjusted anything yet, right? The slings are not done yet. The bumpers are not done yet. But the flippers are. So the flippers should be okay. Like, they may need to be tuned, but they should be pretty good to start off with. And yeah, so look at that right off the bat. That's a huge difference with flipper angles, with power, with accuracy. Oh, that is so much better. Way, way better. And you can see how the ball is moving. It's actually got weight to it now. It's not slow. It's not floaty. It's actually feeling like it should. And you can listen to the sounds, man. Like all the sounds. Every time the ball's hitting anything, it's automatically being generated. And now it's a live catch there. Now I'll point out that with PUP SSF sounds, which is what you're hearing right now, the sounds are always going to be at the same level. They're not going to be adjusted with speed and all that. And I kept it that way because PUP SSF is normally used like inside a cabinet, and it's not going to be the same because it's using exciters and shakers, So it's always at a lower level than Future Pinball's volume, which is really loud in comparison. So you're going to hear those sounds be at a more consistent level compared to, for example, the Future Pinball sounds, which will change their volume based on ball speed more often. But yeah, listen to that. Like you can hear everything, man. And we don't even have all the extra sounds yet. So that's just the bare bones stuff. But I wanted to show you that because at this point, that physics are working, dynamic ball hit sounds are working, and our flippers physics are working. So if I turn up the normal sound, you can hear that, right? So you're going to hear more of the normal stuff. But everything else is just a mess, So yeah, there. All right. So I just wanted to show that so that you guys can see for yourself that at this point, that's what the progress will be like. All right. So now we can move on to doing our slingshots, which right now are an absolute mess. They're not set up yet correctly. So now again, the flippers you can go back and mess around with all you want, or you can do that right now. I highly recommend getting the rest up and going so that you get a better feel overall for the table, and then adjust the flippers. Right? You use this as a baseline, and then we'll adjust later on everything as we go. Okay? So slingshots. So there's a couple of things we need to do for slingshots. All right? We need to add our slingshot diverters, so that's going to be these guys. And we need to update the code that's on there. Now, I'm going to kind of take an extra step here, okay, to make things a little easier, because you could do this one of two ways. You could either, like we want to have it the same as what we see on here, okay? So this is our slingshot divert. Hold on a second. Where are you? Yeah, these are our slingshot diverters, okay? So those are what are actually going to activate and fling the ball out instead of the Future Pinball rubbers, right? And these are our FizX rubber band walls that are going to replace the bands. So that way we can control the physics on those compared to, a singular one band that has the same setting no matter what, right? We also are going to add these rubber posts so that we can control those as independently. So all these things independently will be controllable, and we're going to be adding these diverters to actually bounce the ball out, okay, when a slingshot gets hit. But first, we have to make sure everything is set up correctly. So let's take a look at where, I can't remember where it's at exactly. Okay, so we'll take a look at the settings for the example table. So we need to click on the left slingshot rubber. This is what is actually the slingshot. So when this gets hit, this will fling out the ball, right? It may be named differently on every table. Luckily, in this case, I think they're both the same, but we're going to be going down to ours, okay? Okay, good. Luckily, I can select it, so that makes it easy. So I want to make the settings the same on both, all right? So you go like that. And you notice that there's no sound. We don't want that either, okay? We want like no mechanical sound being used because we're going to be adding that later on anyway. I'm just saving a step by doing it now. Okay, so all the way down, soft and no sound, matching, good. And we'll do the same on the other side. All the way down, soft, and we're getting rid of the sound because we don't need that. We'll be adding that later on. All right, so our rubbers are set. So now we have to add our diverters and our code. So I'm going to add the code first. Okay, so it shows you on here. I'm going to come back to this, but I'll do this part first. So it shows the code here, right? So slingshot subs need to be updated to match, with what you can kind of see in here. So the example table will have that. So we will go, and I already know what it's called. So it's going to be different for each table though. All right. So the left slingshot rubber, every time it gets hit, everything in here will happen. So we want the same thing on this side, right? Luckily, it's the same name on both, but it's not always going to be that way, right? So what we want is all these things that say FizX, all these lines, we want those copied to the same locations in this side, all right? So we have 2 lines at the top. And we'll put those in there. And then we have multiple lines at the bottom. Now, I'll explain more about what these are doing in a bit. So we got 3 lines down here. Okay. There you go. All right. So the idea is, here, actually, no, I'll do it for both of them. So here's the right slingshot. I'll get them all done in one shot. Oh my gosh, excuse me. All right. All right, and then make sure we do that. It's important that they go at the right locations and they describe where they need to be. Like, so, for example, so this line here, I'll just make this big for a second. So this needs to be the first line, because what this is doing is every time this slingshot rubber gets hit, it's telling Future Pinball, we don't want your rubber to do a damn thing because it sucks. And then this line is saying, if the ball that's hitting that item is not fast enough, then we don't want anything to happen. So just exit this subroutine and do nothing. Okay, so that's what these 2 lines are doing. They're stopping Future Pinball from doing a really sucky slingshot. Now, if the ball is fast enough, then it will allow the rest of what's in here to carry on. It'll do the normal whatever you have in there that you like to do for your table, but then it's going to tell the 2 slingshot diverters to turn on, to flick the ball out, and it's also going to turn the actual rubber on, so it visually flicks the rubber out, so that you're getting the visual and you're getting the new diverters. Now, we've got our code added in for both. So the idea is that you're not going to see these diverters. They're going to be invisible, okay? But you're going to see the Future Pinball rubber just do the motions of the movement, okay? So we're going to copy these on here in a way so that they're going to do the action, but you don't actually see them doing the action. So you have an option of doing it a couple ways. You could add these on manually yourself, like just create, because it uses diverters, right? So you can go in here, find a, well, where the heck are you there? A diverter here and add it. Or you could do things the easy way. I'm a technician and work smart, not hard, right? So that's how we do things. So here's what we do in terms of doing things the easy way. Now, first of all, we're going to do this so we can actually make things easier to see. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to load the same example table into this right window where our actual new table is, right? And the reason why we're doing that is because you can't copy anything from this window into this window because they're completely separate instances, right? So if we open up the same table inside, so I'm pretty sure I got that, yeah, right there, yeah. Okay, so now we have two open. We can switch back and forth anytime we want, right? So this is our template table. This is Sci-fi Classic, right? So what we want to do is we want to select all the items from this table and copy them over. By doing it this way, not only are they set up closer to how we want, but they're going to have all the settings we need automatically. And because we already added the textures that we need and the models that we need, they will automatically use all that stuff. If you didn't add that stuff ahead of time, then it would still add the diverters and the walls and all that, but they just wouldn't have the same properties, and you'd have to manually set up everything yourself. So this is the easy way to do it. So we're going to select all these guys here. You know, like we only need the diverters at this moment, but we need all these anyway, so we'll just copy them all. So we're going to select them all, copy, and then we're going to go to our new table and we're going to paste. And then all of them automatically get copied over. Now, they're not going to necessarily line up right. That's fine. Every table is different, right? So currently they're locked. We can't move them because they're locked. So what you do is they're all selected. So you just right click on that, click lock, and then boom. Now you can see they're blue. We can move them anywhere we want. So the idea is try to line up, you know, I mean, with as good as you can, but it's not going to be perfect, right? So just kind of get it in a decent location. And then what you want to do is you want to have it so that, I don't know if they're all in the same, oh, they are too. Okay, so they're all in the same layer. Hold on a second. Okay, good. I'm going to change this rubber so that he's on a different layer. 5? What's on 5? Okay, good. Okay, so the idea here is we want to have, we want to try to have it so that this rubber here, the diverters are just a little bit behind the rubber band, and our new FizX rubber posts that I also added, and I'll go into that more later, are lined up so that when the ball rolls down, it rolls smoothly and doesn't bump off, right? So, first things first, take this guy here and kind of get him so that he's lined up pretty close so that this edge is fairly good so that the ball will roll smoothly down, right? But you want to make sure that it's a little bit further down so that it's actually going to be what the ball hits instead of the actual rubber. That's the whole point of doing this, okay? Because we're going to be putting our rubbers in place instead of the cruddy Future Pinball rubbers so that we can completely adjust all parts of it however we want. So if these are not a good size, they don't seem to fit good, you can change them to be bigger or smaller because we imported all those models, right? So this one is, I mean, these are okay. You know, like they don't have to be exact, but, shoot, so I undo that. So just try your best to, you know, make it pretty good, okay? And then for the diverter, bring it back, you know, just so that's behind a little bit. As bit, you know, but you want them both to kind of line up the same. And how far apart they are, you know, like you may have to adjust that. Their angle, you may have to adjust that to make them a little bit better. It's really up to you. In this case, I'll try changing it to 160. Yeah, that's a little more even with the actual rubber band. And yeah, I think that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Maybe move him back just a little bit. Yes, I said a little bit. You know, Elmer Fudd. And as long as these are kind of together, that's pretty good. Again, you'll want to adjust this a little bit, but use similar settings as to, you know, what you see on here, right? Just to give you a baseline. And that's pretty good. You know, you can play around with that later on. We'll talk more about these rubbers later on. Now, again, these, as long as you import them with the right settings, you won't be seeing them. They won't be visible, right? Like this wall here, uh, are set to rubber and are set to invisible, right? The, these diverters, we can't set them to be invisible, but we added a full transparent texture to them, which makes them invisible. Okay, that's why we had to add all that stuff. And because we did a copy and paste the way we did, all that stuff is automatically set for us. So we don't have to go in and manually set it by comparing it, right? And the bigger thing is their names are correct. So the names that they have to work correctly, so in this case, Sling Diverter 2 and Sling Diverter 1. Oh, shoot. I hit the wrong one. Hold on. Hold on. So Sling Diverter 2, Sling Diverter 1 are matching with here, okay? And the same case with 3 and 4 for the other side when we do those, all right? So that's pretty okay set. That's set all right. So now we're going to do the same thing on the other side, all right? So now that I've explained it, I can do a lot quicker. Lock, and then copy, and the paste. Yeah, I know, I do some singing when I'm bored while I'm working on stuff. All right, so. All right. And again, just like we did on the other side. Doesn't have to be perfect, but you know, this part here is like, you know, with these guys lined up with the rubber is probably the most important because that's going to affect your post passing, you know, and then you may have to, you know, fiddle with that. The bands, these are not, in my opinion, necessary, but you know, it doesn't hurt to add them. But you know, you may want to adjust that per your taste. The ones that are important are the top one, this one here for post passing, and the diverters. These ones here aren't as important because the ball just rolls down there anyway, but you know, that's up to you. You'll just have to change your PhysX settings to match later on. Ah, shoot, I did that wrong. And Future Pinball does have undo, so you know, don't worry if you mess it up. All right, so those are. Yeah, this guy could be a little better. Okay. Let's see. Now, sometimes some elements are over top of others, which is a pain in the butt. I'm not sure why it's being like that on this one. Hold on. Okay, well, let's see here. Okay, that makes it a little easier. Huh, what was that? What was that? Oh, did I do what I think I did? Did I copy an additional set of bands? Hold on, what did I actually copy? Oh man, oh no. I hope I didn't duplicate. It wouldn't be the first time, but let's take a look here. I think I might have accidentally duplicated the bands there. Hold on. Let's see if I can get them selected. Okay, well, he's okay, and he's okay. So what's this? Okay. I accidentally copied an extra rubber over. So be careful what you copy over. Sometimes you might get, and I should check the other side too. See if I did the same thing. Let's slingshot rubber. Okay. Okay, so this side's okay. I just wanted to be sure I didn't accidentally copy more than I was supposed to. The giveaway there was that, you know, when I tried adjusting it, I'm like, wait a minute, how come, you know, it's not letting me click on something. When you add something new, it's always on top of everything else. So when you click on that, it's, you know, what you will actually select, and everything underneath, you won't be able to select it, right? So that's kind of a giveaway if you accidentally do something like that. Okay, so That's okay. Like, I mean, again, it doesn't have to be perfect, guys. You know, you can play around. Like, you might want to maybe have it lined up perfect with that. You know what I mean? Like, it's really up to you. If you want to bring him up a little more, you know, and try to have it more like that, if you really want, and then bring this guy up. And same with the other side. Okay. I'll check that on the other side too. Yeah, it's taking longer to do this than I was expecting, but that's okay. It's okay. Yeah, it's okay. All right, so those aren't so bad. All right, so we have our slingshots added. We'll save. Now, something I recommend doing, I'm not doing it on this video, but I recommend doing is when you reach a new milestone, you know, like say you just did the slings, right? Save it to a new file name, like, you know, like the Sci-fi Classic FizX -1 or -2, -3. Like whenever you reach a new milestone, always save to a completely new table file, because if something went really wrong and you did a crap load of work and you saved it to the same single file, you could lose everything. Trust me, like when I work on some of my tables, I got hundreds of the same table file every time I add a new significant change or feature to the table. Trust me, you get in that habit, you save yourself a lot of headaches. Future Pinball or Visual Pinball, it doesn't matter. You know, do it the same on both. So now that we got the slings on there, we have the bonus of actually having the rubbers on there too. And the slings are named correctly. They have the correct diverter names, and everything's positioned correctly. Actually, hold on a second. I forgot to turn on my joystick, but hold on. We'll try it again. All right. Actually, I'll show you something else while we're at it. The debugger. If you launch the table with F9, then it will launch with the debug window. And I've added a whole bunch of code on there that will tell you all sorts of stuff. So yeah, like you can see, it shows the BAM version, the FizX version, what profile we're using. I have DOF on this computer, so it allowed DOF to work. I have PUP on this computer, so it's telling me the PUP pack has been started, and that they're both enabled. And it's telling me that the Future Pinball mechanical sounds are disabled because it's using PUP SSF instead. All right, so I just wanted to explain that. Yeah, I'm using a wireless joystick, or a gamepad, so and I use it for ball controller, and sometimes it turns off if you haven't done anything for a while. So let's just take a look down here, see if there's anything I did or didn't mess up. So did I? Oh, is it? Oh, maybe that was that copy and paste I screwed up. Yeah, because that doesn't look right. Yeah, that didn't look right. Let's double check to make sure they look great. Yeah, I don't think that's right. Nope. Now, there could be a reason for that. Just give me a moment here. Let me check. Okay, so even though they're selected as full transparent, the problem is when you exit Future Pinball, reload, exit, reload, exit, reload, when you do that a whole bunch of times, sometimes the tables don't load correctly, or tables aren't, or textures aren't handled correctly. So it's always a good habit to save your table and close Future Pinball. No, we'll exit that. Okay, and reload Future Pinball again. All right, it's a good habit to be in, because what I saw, it didn't look like the items were invisible like they were supposed to be. So let's just see if that's still the case or not. Yeah, when things don't seem to be playing right or looking right, exit Future Pinball completely and reload the table. Yeah, there we go. See that? And it's one of these things I keep telling everyone every time. You know, when you load these games, always load it from a fresh, like make sure Future Pinball was not open, you know, already open. Like open Future Pinball from scratch, load the table and play it, and then when you exit the table, completely close Future Pinball before you start another table again. You know, now in this case we're doing this stuff, that's why we're doing it a lot, but so as you can see, everything looks correct now. All right, so you can't see those items we added. So if that's a good pro tip there. All right, so let's see if they seem to be working. All right, our bumpers are still terrible. So let's let the ball roll down. Okay, so you can see there, like, first of all, on the old physics, if we let the ball roll down like that, the sling would have made it go pew no matter what, and that's not how it should be, right? So you want to make sure the ball can roll down, but you want it to do smoothly. You notice how it bumped out like that? It shouldn't be doing that. It should be kind of going straight down nonstop. So both of those, I'll have to adjust that rubber model a little bit, right? But now the slings should be working. And they will only work if the ball moves fast enough. If the ball only moves a tiny bit, then they're not going to activate. Also, when you hit the slings, where you hit them will determine how effective or how well they're hit and what angle they're hit, right? So if you hit them up here or down below, the ball's going to move down more instead of flying upward like it always did on the old Future Pinball physics. So it's going to be accurate and more correct. Okay. So now keep in mind we don't have any mechanical sounds right now because I turned those off, right? So there you go. The slings are working correctly. Way more accurately. So if the ball is at a slow speed, like it won't do anything, you know? Whereas before, it would have went off almost every time. And in FizX settings, we have an option for slingshot sensitivity where you can make it more or less sensitive to the ball speed, right? So that's all part of this new system. And you can do that for every ball that's on the table, or every slingshot that's on the table. You just have to make sure everything's named correctly in the code and on the table editor. And yeah, so there you go. We'll add the slingshot mechanical sounds later on. All right. All right. So our slings are working, yay! And you learned a valuable tip about closing and reopening every so often. And that goes for physics too. Sometimes the physics will be weird if you close the table or exit out of the table, reload, exit, reload over and over again. You know, sometimes you just have to do a fresh reload of the entire program. All right. So here, let's turn the glossiness down. We got our slings done. So now the next step would be bumpers. All right, so bumpers are pretty straightforward. So all we do for them is in most cases, is just change the model types and add a new separate skirt model instead of having it all be as one. So let's look at the example table as it tells us and use the similar settings and everything that it does, right? So here's our example table. And we'll just keep going until I have everything visible to be sure. All right. So, you can see here that there's two separate models for the bumper. There's a skirt, which is a peg model. It's not just a specific kind of model. It's just a peg type ornament. That if you go down here for ornaments or objects, I think it's objects. I can't remember. You have ornaments and you have a peg. So it's going to be a peg, right? So we're going to be adding that, and we're going to be changing the bumper to use similar settings to this. All right. Now the bumper can be named whatever you want. There's no dynamic code or anything like that for controlling bumpers in PhysX. So what I do is I select all three bumpers. So that way we're changing the settings on all of them at the same time. And then the base model is what we're changing to. Now this T1V3 is one of the new ones we added. So this is a T1. So we're going to change it to the T1V3. You notice how we got a bunch of V3s? Now, that may change in the future if JLou makes new models or someone else does or whatever. Bottom line is you're changing it to the FizX equivalent model that we've created. Okay? So there we go. Now the bumper model is correct, but we are not using a trigger skirt. Okay? We're turning that off because we're going to add a separate model altogether for that. And the only other thing, just make sure it's fair. Like when it comes to the lighting, do it however you want. But it's mostly the strength, these settings for the bumpering and the trigger skirt, and the model that you have to change. Okay, anything else is not effective for physics whatsoever. So in this case, we're going to go down to strength, and it's pretty much in the center. 50 to 60% is usually pretty good. I usually, again, like to start at the center. And if there's any sound here, remove them because we're going to use our own anyway. And I think that's it. Yeah, so all the settings are correct. All right, good. So now we have to add a skirt peg. So what we do there is we just, we just add a peg here. We choose peg, like that. And then we just change the model to bumper skirt, which is our FizX bumper skirt. And that's it. Now texture, it doesn't have any by default. On the example table either, I don't think it does. No. But what I like to do is I like to change it to chrome silver and give it a spear mat. It just makes it look nicer. That's just me. You know, I like the way that looks. Now, what I also do is I look at the original bumper. What was the skirt color they used? And if you want it to match, then, you know, change it to match. And that's it. And yeah, I think, yeah, you don't have anything else set. You just change the position and that's it. Whatever you do, though, do not set mark as ornamental. Nothing in the table should be set as that. Like, a lot of older tables have that for certain items that actually affect ball physics, which blows my mind. So if someone went into the Future Pinball video settings and didn't set them the way I've always told them that they have to be set, you know, they have to be set like this for the love of God, you know, or love of whatever you want to love. You know, but if someone, where is it? Where are you here? Geez, where are they? Where's the option there? It's been a while here. Hold on. It's in here somewhere. Where am I missing it? Oh, there. Oh, God, I'm blind. It's right here. Because if this was disabled, then if someone disabled that and this was enabled, then these would not have any effects on physics, or the object would be gone. It'd be disappeared. Because the idea of an ornament is it's supposed to be just like a visual add-on, you know, that doesn't affect gameplay, right? So never, but our computers are fast enough today, never set anything to be an ornament. Ever, guys. Ever, ever, ever. You see anything set to an ornament, change it, deselect that. You know, set things right in the world. So there you go. All right, so we're going to need 3 of these. And we're going to make them match the position. So what I do is I just copy the X and Y from the bumper over to here. Just nice and easy. That way it's lined up perfect. And set the rotation to match as well. So that way, you know, the little metal parts and all that line up correctly. Okay? Mm-hmm. All right, I'm still here. So there we go. All right. So now we should be good to go for our bumpers. So now our bumpers shouldn't be, you know, operating like absolute crap now. And even though the strength was the same, you're going to see a huge difference with how they work now. So let's give this a go. All right. So before I actually launch the ball, you take a look, and there's our skirts at the bottom, and you know, they're pretty plain looking. I mean, they're Future Pinball models, you know, they're nothing fancy, but the skirts are correct, and they're lining up, and they look correct. So there you go. Okay. So now you just give it a test. All right. So we'll just go like that. There you go. So now they're actually, you know, firing up and acting more correctly, and balls are firing off in more realistic directions. I know I'm not exactly giving a great demo here, but there you go. Whereas before you saw what they were like. Like they wouldn't even fire off. It was as if the bumpers didn't exist. And then you can adjust the strength however you want, angles, whatever else. But as you can see, much better now. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Oh, look at that. So much better. Let's see if we can do a post pass. Well, it's not the best, but we got something there. All right. There you go. So much better. All right. So our bumpers are better. Oh, you know what? I didn't adjust the slings a little bit. Hold on a second here. Well, actually, that's going to be our next step. It's kind of funny. That's actually our next step. But our bumpers are good. Bumpers are done. Yay. You know, you can adjust them for strength as you need. So now, this is the big one. This is one of the ones that takes a long, long time. This is a FizX rubber posts. So, and rubber bands. So this is the one that, you know, you're going to spend probably some of the most time on in respect to the physics, okay? It's not hard. It's just, depending on the table, you can add a lot of stuff. So, for FizX, we need to add, we need to replace the bands with our own version and the posts with our own version. So that way, we have better physics controlling the ball when it bounces off of them. We can directly control different parts of it instead of having just one single band be the same everywhere. We can change the elasticity of each part. We can change the scatter amount. So it gives us way more control. And it also will use you know, certain sounds as well from the FizX code, depending on what you named them. So all those things. So let's just take a look here. Oh, no, that's not what we want. So, okay, so here's a rough idea. So a lot of these, yeah. So a lot of these are like all the rubbers. Like actually, this is a good example table. Don't go by mine. You know, like this is probably all the rubbers on the entire table. So that makes it a lot easier to see them all in one layer. That's a well-made table. So, as you can see, we already added our stuff on the slingshots. All right. What I should have done earlier that I mentioned was I should have, yeah. Oh yeah, you can see it. Okay. So you want the ball to roll off of the rubber smoothly down. You don't want this protruding out there. So what you want is to bring this guy over. You still want him to be down a little. Now, you might have to change what size this is and other things, but, you know, this part and this part are the important parts here to make sure the ball goes smooth and, you know, you don't have any oddball things going on. Yeah, same with this one. So, like this and, you know, just kind of bring her like that. There you go. And that'll make it smoother. All right. I forgot to correct that from when we did the slings. So, we already added some models on here. Now, if you want to add more models onto the table, they are all for rubbers, which is what we are supposed to be doing. I'm not going to do that for the whole table because I've already done it here. But you would add diverter models for every post, and then you would add a wall for the bands. And then you would make sure they are using the same settings as shown on the example table. And let's take a look at the example table. Now, I don't think the example table has anything on these yet. No, it doesn't. Because it was just a bare bones when we didn't go all crazy. We just wanted to show, an example here. This is a surface as an example. And it was made as one big rubber band to cover this entire drop target area, right? So if you have something like this, if you wanted to create a surface in the shape of that entire thing, you could. You just have to use similar settings, like make sure the height is high enough to cover the entire band. Make sure it's set to be invisible. Like in this case, it's used differently, but you don't want our FizX rubbers to be visible. They're supposed to be invisible. These rubbers are just for looks, okay? Ours are for the actual physics. So what we do is we add them as either a diverter for the post, because that's how it works. That's the way we were able to make it work with rubber properties the way we want without messing up the rest of the table. So that's why we use diverters. Uh, and you just make sure that in terms of these diverter objects, they all are using full transparent or invisible. Just make sure it's an invisible texture is the bottom line. We add them just as you see here with the rubber bands. Rubber bands, same thing. Rubber bands can just not be rendered. You can add a invisible texture if you want, but you don't need to for rubber bands. Make sure they're also set to material type rubber, and make sure they're set to collidable. All right. But otherwise, we don't want to see any of these. And once you have them positioned correctly, just on the outside of the rubbers, so that way they're the ones making the collisions with the ball, not the Future Pinball rubbers. Because we can't tell the Future Pinball rubbers to not collide, unfortunately. If we could, that would make our job a lot easier, but we can't do that, unfortunately. And then again, change the rubber strength. Like in this case of this one, you would do it the same. You would choose soft all the way down, just like it was on here. If I can, so yeah, just like it was here. Same idea. Add one of these posts to the corner, to the corner, to the corner, and then add the bands if you want. Or you could do one giant butt surface like this and just shape it all the way around the way you want. There's various different ways. You can use smaller ones for these rubbers, to cover them. Or you can use actual rubbers that are not invisible, that are made, exactly the same way these guys are, as long as they're a diverter. Same idea. Because these rubbers that we add here, we can't change, this rubber post, for example, we can't change the name, right? So we can't control anything with that. So that's why we have to add these things with the right name and the right properties. So if you look here, it tells you they must be named rubber post 1, rubber post 2, rubber band 1, rubber band 2. All right, so make sure they're named that way throughout the entire editor for every single one you add. Now, I'm not going to add them. It's going to take a long time, and I'm not going to add that in this whole tutorial. That's just too much. But there are also other ones you can use, such as these guys over here. These guys can be used for actual rubber models instead of the Future Pinball ones, because they're like rubber rings, right? And we can use them as diverters still. Sorry, these ones here as a rubber diverter. Or, correction, okay, I am actually correct in that. You can use these FizX rubber posts as long as you imported them from like we did at the beginning. And the rubber type is mini post, tiny, and post. And as long as you use the FizX rubbers that we had and the same code, then they should work fine as well. I forgot about those actually. Yeah, so you can use these on the actual table to replace actual rubbers on the table, right? Or if you have ones on there already, that are rubber, then yeah, just make sure they're selected as one of these three, because FizX is already using those, right? So you have to play around with what you prefer best. Do you like these, or do you want to use one of these that's kind of like a big cylinder, instead of that, and then just leave this here as a visual, right? So you have to play around with that to see what you prefer. But the bottom line is, as long as you're using the rubber post models or a diverter model, then it should be fine. So after that, but then, hold on, let me see. Okay. Yeah, so these ones are just generic rubber. So if you use any of these, they'll work, but you're not going to be able to have a whole lot of control over them, right? Whereas with these, you have total control over them. So keep that in mind, right? So I think that's why he put these examples in here. Like he made a surface that you can put around this whole rubber. And then that surface is what will be actually controlled in FizX, whereas this won't really do much. So keep that in mind. That's why he had all three of these on here. I didn't notice that. That's actually cool. So one could be an ornament, which does nothing. It's just for visuals. One could be a rubber, which would do some, but it's not going to be very controllable in FizX settings. And then you can use some kind of surface or wall, which is named with a very specific name, such as we've been using. Like over here. So any surface or wall that has the proper naming will be completely controllable. I know I've been going on way too long in this part. Sorry, guys. This is a lot to go through. But bottom line is, simply put, if you add a wall or surface named, as rubber band or rubber post with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then that's controllable through FizX settings. If you don't, then it's not controllable through FizX settings, and you're at the mercy of whatever the settings are for the rubber type, which may or may not be what you desire. Okay? That's simple. So once you've added everything on this entire table, all these rubbers everywhere, you've gone through and done everything. And if you do add guys like this, they're going to need a surface like. If they can be offset, that's great. But certain rubbers may need a reference, like a rubber surface reference, with a specific height, so that way they can be elevated exactly where you want them to be. It's a stupid Future Pinball and Visual Pinball thing where you can't just tell an object to be at a Z height for everything. On these you can. But for lots of other things, you can't do that, and it's really annoying that we can't just say X, Y, and Z. We have to choose a surface instead, and it's really annoying for a lot of stuff, and I hate that. So once you got everything set up the way you want, and they're all named in order correctly, then what you need to do is, just like they say in the tutorial, and I'll show you here, you get them all named, you get them all on there. You have to go through the FizX table settings and code section. And we will be adding code for each one of those posts and bands based on what we have on the table. Okay? And they'll be named to match that. So that way we can control exactly what elasticity they'll be using based on settings we have in FizX. So, let's see here. That's, no, we don't want that one. We want this one. All right. So we are going to go to our Profile 1 settings because that's what we're using. Okay. And there you go. All right. So this is our rubbers section right here of what we're going to have on the table. Rubber settings for items, for table items. Now this section up here is the generic settings that you can use. You can change the scatter amount, the degrees of scatter for each time the ball hits it. You can change the different generic settings for each rubber setting. So if you want a soft rubber or an extra hard rubber. So what you do is, if you have a rubber post on here, then what you will do is you'll have to put rubber post type, and then you'll put 2 to match. Rubber post 2, rubber post 2. And then you'll be putting the bounciness that you want to use, and this number reflects the settings here. In the case of a band, it's the same idea. Rubber band 5, for example. Rubber band 5, right? And he's set to 1 as well. Whereas if we have one rubber band, we don't have rubber band 1. Because that was from the example table, so I'll get rid of that. The only ones we do have on this table currently are these guys from our slingshot. So this is all we currently have in the table right now. Okay? So you just make sure the rubber post type and the rubber band type numbers are matching whatever we have on here. Okay? And then If you want to change the settings for each one individually, you just change the elasticity setting from 1 to 6. So if you want soft rubber, it's 1. If you want a extra hard rubber, it's 6. And then you can customize this however you want. But normally, you don't need to change any of this. You would just add your stuff in this section, and then make sure they're named to match, and then just give it the rubber setting you want. And that's it. That's really all about you got to do, man. So go throughout that whole process for all rubbers. Make sure they're in this section, and then save the table, and then you'll be good. And then you'll have to play around, obviously, with what you want. Positioning is extremely important, not just for the bounciness and how the ball knocks off it, but sometimes if you push it too far out, you may block a ball from. Oh, I didn't hold that down very much. You may block a ball from being able to actually get through. Like if I put those bands too far over it, the ball might not fit through here, right? So and then you can hear every time it's hitting certain things. You can have the rubber sounds if you want, or you can have different sounds. Now let me try the pulse pass there again. Let me see if I can get, there we go. That's a lot better. Yeah, see, look at that, much better. See how much of a difference it makes just positioning things the right way? There you go. There you go. And as you see, some parts are not being very effective because the rubbers have not been replaced at all. But there you go. So then you'll go through that whole process, and once you're done that, you're done your rubbers. All right, so the next part, FizX Drop Targets. This is one I'm not going to go through the whole process of because it's, quite frankly, very involved compared to everything else. Bottom line is, if you don't have to add FizX Drop Targets. You don't have to. They're an option. Basically, the idea is that here's a drop target here for target bank, right? So the idea is you want to do is you want to add an invisible. If there's already real drop targets on the table, then you want to add an invisible wall that surrounds the entire drop target. And then you want to make sure it has the same settings. You want it to be set to plastic. You want it to be collidable. You want it to, in our case over here, you want it to not be rendered because we want it to be invisible. On the example table, they're drop target walls. They're not proper actual real drop targets. They're just there as an example because there were no actual drop targets on that table. But in this case, we have real drop targets already here. So the idea is that you add the guide wall just a little bit bigger than the drop target. You give it the right settings, and you would make it invisible on the side and the top because you do have to add invisible textures to the top and the side because when these things either drop, if you choose to have them drop and not drop, they'll re-render themselves again. It's a weird Future Pinball thing. They have to be named DT1, DT2, DT3, just like the rubbers as well. That way FizX knows they're FizX drop target walls. And then when FizX, the ball hits the drop target walls, the ball will then scatter using whatever settings you set here in the drop target section here. But then from that point on, you have to then manually make sure that that wall is being dropped or not collidable at the same time that this drop target drops in the table and pops back up. It has to match all the actions, okay? So it's very involved. It's way beyond the scope of what I wanted to show in this video. So the bottom line is you're just going to have to add a DT1, DT2 wall with the right settings, and then throughout the table script of every instance of every action of that drop target, you're going to have to make sure that that wall is actually doing all the actions. So whether it's in this case, 4 bank is hit, right? That's this drop target here. Well, I don't want any action being taken when that's hit. I want the action when the drop target wall for FizX is hit. Once that gets hit, then I need to force, everything in here to take place. So you can either rename this sub as DT1 being hit, and then add the wall here. Actually, do I have? No, I don't. Here, let's just do this the easy way. We got the example table there. Yeah. Yeah, I would say this is probably my least favorite part of doing any of this, to be honest. And I don't even do it on every table. It's not as, detrimental as the rest of this is. So the idea is that you could make him there, and then make him there, and then make him wide. So that way you know for sure that's getting hit and not the actual drop target. Yeah, I would probably do it somewhere centered. Basically along those lines. Set it to plastic. Generate a hit event, collidable. We don't want it rendered, and you want it to be, you can set to full transparent. Full transparent. Now that being said, at first you may not want to add these textures. You may want to actually see what's going on with this drop target until you know it's working correctly throughout the entire table code's actions. Then add transparent textures after the fact, right? So the idea is that because this is DT1 and the ball hits this, it's going to go to this sub, and then all these actions are going to take place. But you have to tell it, here, I'll send it back. You have to tell it to manually make 4-bank drop every time this is hit. Now, I'm not going to go through all that code and all those examples. Take a look at Blue versus Pink, Pin Event V2, or Star Wars Death Star SL Galactic Edition. It has a whole bunch of examples in there of how the drop targets work. So use those examples. I'm not going to go through that in this video, but the bottom line is you're making this wall take the collision and do all the drop target actions, and then you have to add extra commands to make this guy drop and pop up, as well as make this wall, the DT1 wall, either be non-collidable and collidable, however you want to do it. But yeah, it's a pain in the butt. I'm not a fan. So I'm just going to remove this because I'm not going to go through that whole thing. So yeah, I know not the most helpful, I know, but it gives you an idea of what's going to go on with drop targets. I'd recommend using those other table examples that I mentioned. It's as it says, update any drop target code in the table to work with any FizX drop targets you have added. And that's basically what I was describing, because this is a bare bones tutorial to get you up and running. It's not going to go through every detail, right? So that's drop targets. Now we're at the point of, we're almost at the end of our physics part. Okay. So now that we've gotten everything kind of dialed in and ready to go and happy and working, we can always fine tune everything later on. Now you want to update the regular table items. So that would be any kickers, vertical up kickers, auto plungers, anything that's going to affect the ball's movement may have to be adjusted. And it's going to be different for each table. You may have to adjust settings in the XML code, but only if you absolutely have to. Don't touch anything in there unless you absolutely have to, okay? So things like, for example, let's see here. Let's re-enable everything again. All right, so hold on. I made it too hard to click on things. All right, let's try this again. So things like the plunger kicker. If at first when you test the table, the ball is not wanting to come out here correctly, or keeps getting stuck or bouncing back or whatever, then you may have to adjust the strength over here of that. Okay, you may have to increase it. or decrease it. Depends on what's going on, right? This kicker here, same idea. This kicker here, this kicker here. Any or a vertical up, anything. Maybe a diverter strength, possibly. Normally you shouldn't have to adjust anything except for maybe the auto plunger or kickback auto plunger. The actual plunger and the kickers. Try editing those as you need to in the table editor first. If they're good, then you're good to go. If they don't seem to be working as much, like giving it enough power that you need, like they're just too weak and the ball just doesn't kick out far enough or whatever, then what you'll have to do is you'll have to go into the XML section here, and then you'll have to look for that item in here and increase like their impulse as needed. So for example, a kicker impulse. Right now it's only 1,000, which is not much. So if it's not enough, you might have to increase it to 1,500 or 2,000 and then adjust the strength of every kicker on the entire table so that they all work, right? If you change this, it affects every single kicker in the entire table. Same thing with the vuk impulse. It's going to change every vertical up kicker. And you got auto plunger mass here. You can increase that. You got the force. You can increase that, but only do it for those types of items. Don't go changing anything else like the gravity or the Newton settings or don't touch any of that whatsoever. All of that was pre-tuned for everything else to work with that. Okay, so be careful. And I even described all that in here as well. Now, if you want the nudge to be more powerful or less powerful, then you can go to like nudge impulse here, and you can increase or change that value. Okay, you can change the angle. You can change a few things on there. Okay, so once you get all that dialed in, then you're mostly good for the main physics. That stuff takes a while. Like again, this is one video. Like this kind of stuff normally takes some people, an entire evening or maybe a few nights or whatever. When they're doing this kind of stuff, right? So adding all this in one shot like this, because we're doing physics, we're doing sound, SSF, a whole bunch of stuff all in one, right? So it's a lot to go through. So once that's done, and you're happy with the physics, so in this case we'll just do one more quick test to make sure everything's happy. Again, you can readjust flippers or things after the fact if you really, really aren't happy, okay? So see, for me, those bumpers are pretty good. See, like those slings aren't very sensitive, so if you want to have them go off easier, then you can change that in the FizX settings. Excuse me. Now the live catches are kind of easy, so if you want to make live catches more difficult, then you can increase that in FizX settings, right? But so far, like, just with this alone, like it's a dramatic increase. If that ball ever gets out of there. Oh boy. Well, that's a first. There we go. And that's the thing too. You might find that you might have to adjust the table itself, like the layout, the geometry, of a lot of things, because a lot of tables are designed with older physics in mind, and they had a lot of workarounds to try to get around certain things, right? So once you add all this stuff, you might find you might have to change or remove certain things that are no longer needed or may actually mess up things, right? So see, they can do a small micro flip. Now let's take a look at the slings like we had before. Let's see, much better, much better. There you go. Yeah, yay. And so far, everything seems to be working pretty good. And then you can go in and adjust it all as you want. So pretty happy with that for a quick setup. Normally that's the kind of thing I would spend a lot more time on tuning, but this is a pretty simple table, so we don't have to spend too much time on it. So now that that's done, now we just basically have the ball sounds and ball rolling. So basically, the ball sounds, when I say the ball sounds, I mean the ball hit sounds, the automatic stuff. That's working already. Okay, we have that working. Again, I'm doing all this with PUP SSF enabled right now. But the idea is that, and I'll go to the code. If you go to the ball settings code, which, it may change its location, but, it's going to be the same more or less. There we are. So the ball hit sounds code. So bottom line is, this section here is your max volume that will ever play at. If you for I could, so between 0 to 1. That's normal Future Pinball settings, right? So again, most of this is affecting Future Pinball sounds, not so much PUP SSF. Okay, PUP, at least currently, PUP SSF is kind of always going to be its full sound because it's different when it's inside a cabinet. So at least that's the way it currently is right now. So all this is affecting just the Future Pinball sounds, which we're not currently using right now. So if you want to change your max volume, change it here for any type of sound. So like for the rubbers that are hit, the targets that are hit, the metals that are hit, the woods that are hit, the plastics that are hit, the aprons that are hit, the play fields that are hit, and this is flipper rubber, by the way, so when it bounces off the flipper. The next section here is for Future Pinball sounds. If you want to choose if it's going to have volume of those sounds based on the speed of the ball. The faster the ball goes, the louder the sound will be. The slower it is, the lower it is, right? So if you don't care about that and you want just consistent sounds all the time, kind of like what PUP SSF is doing right now, then you disable this and set it to false, okay? If you do have that set to true, though, and you find the sounds are really low, then you can increase the amplification here. Don't go crazy on it, because if you set this too high, well, then it's just going to make everything like this all the time anyway, right? So, and this section here is just talking about if you want a specific item on the table to have a different auto-generated ball hit sound compared to what kind of material it is. So for example, let's say this wall here. Okay, so this is set to wood. So it's a material type of wood. And some objects on the table, you don't get to change that. That's preset, right? Certain types of objects may be preset to metal. And you can't change that at all here. You'd have to go to the Future Pinball model editor and change the model itself and go through that, but we're not doing that in this video. So let's say I wanted to change this wall here, this wood wall, so that, yes, I want the physics of wood to still be used, but I want the sound of, say, metal. Well, then I would have to change the name of this, according to this, to metal 1 or metal 2, metal 3. Just like our rubbers, how we did rubber 1, rubber 2, rubber 3, the same idea applies for these auto-generated sounds. So if I want, now you have to be careful about this. If I change this to metal 1, then now it will play a different sound every time the ball hits it compared to a wood material would normally do, right? Because we're forcing it to have a different sound without changing sound files or any other stuff, right? Like, it's just like you might have ornaments or other things that, possibly give a sound you don't want. Depending on it, well, not ornaments, but certain objects on the table, surfaces or whatever, you can possibly change their name. Like if I change this to a different name, even though, it's got the material type of plastic, I could change that, So there's a lot that you can do. Just keep in mind that, and you also have to make sure they generate a hit event too. Like some of these, like this one is collidable, but doesn't generate a hit event. So you may have to double check. I'm not sure if that's required or not. It probably is. So double check that. Actually, you know what? Let's check that right now, if I can. Okay, so this doesn't have a generated hit event on. So let's just give this a shot. Before I do that though, remember if you change the name of something on here in the table editor, understand it may be controlled in the table script. So you're going to have to change the name in the table script as well everywhere it's used. So make sure they both match. As well, if you use a surface, if you change the name of something like this or a surface, other objects in the table may rely on that surface for how high they are. Remember I mentioned that earlier. A stupid thing I still hate with both Visual Pinball and Future Pinball. If you change the name of one thing, Future Pinball isn't smart enough to go and change the name of it on the other object when it comes to this setting here, because this surface option here is what this object uses to determine how high up it's positioned. So if I change the name of this and something else relied on this, well, that something else is no longer going to have the proper name, and this is just going to be blank, and then it's not going to be positioned correctly. So be careful when you rename anything. Script has to match whatever you put in the editor, and other objects may be affected by that. So keep that in mind before doing that. So let's just check this and see. I don't think we need a generated hit event for that, but I'm going to try that anyway and see what happens. All right, I'm gonna go on the inside here if I can. Yeah, I can. So, okay, so yeah. Okay. Okay, so you can hear that. Here, let's drain out actually, because maybe you'll hear a different sound from one side compared to the other. Okay, so that's that side. So the sounds are a little bit different. All right, so, and it doesn't have a generated hit event, so I guess it doesn't matter whether you have that or not. But I'm curious now, if I turn that on, will that change anything? And let's change that to this side too. Okay. Let's just say that. Because the idea of a generated hit event is every time the ball hits something, you could then in script make something happen, right? But that's not a desirable way to. That's how we used to have to do things manually. Add stuff to script to make that all work. But okay, interesting. 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 Okay, so maybe it depends on where I'm doing it. Not sure. Okay, interesting. That's something you'll have to play around with. Very interesting. Yeah. Unless there's something I'm not seeing in there. There could be a hidden surface I'm not noticing, which is not unusual. But I'll put that back to where it was. But yeah, so I mean, that's something you can play around with and see if it gives a different sound. What else? Other options do we have here? Wood, plastic, metal. Let's try plastic 1 and see if it sounds any different. I'm hoping it sounds different. Let's try that. Because ideally that's supposed to work. Let's give that a try. Okay, so it is the different sound then. Okay, so it is working. Okay, so there you go. We'll just call it a. I'll just do it as wood again. Do that. There you go. We'll put it back as wood. And, there you go. All right. So I know that was a bit. I just wanted to confirm that, but yeah, it does work. It just depends on how different the sounds actually are, and the speed of the ball does affect the sound that's played sometimes. Not just how loud it is, right? There's actual different sounds that will get played. One example is the apron down here. If you don't change the name to anything, it'll just use a generic metal hit or whatever depending on what this is set to. This let me see here. This little wall here is, where are you? There you are. So that's set to metal, right? So if the ball were to hit this on the way down, it would then use a metal sound, right? But if I was to rename this to apron 1, then it'll have, ideally, a different sound. All right, so let's just see here. All right, so let's take a look at the sound here. Just wait till that's done. Oh, too noisy. Okay, so you can hear how loud that is, right? Okay, so there you go. It is a different sound. All right, so yeah, so that works as well. The apron. Again, though, be very careful when you rename stuff because a lot of these tables use functions throughout the script with certain objects, certain surfaces, certain walls. And other objects sometimes rely on them using certain names as well. So just be careful about what you do when it comes to that. So that's ball hit sounds. You don't have to do anything, but you have the options if you want to manually force stuff. So there you go. So ball rolling sound. Well, that's pretty straightforward. If it's PUP SSF sound like we're using right now, then you don't really need to change it. If you want to change the max volume so it doesn't go above a certain amount, then you can change that right here. Okay. For Future Pinball sounds, when we're not using PUP SSF, it's between 0 to 1. If you find that it's too loud, then just reduce it, whatever you want. The sound effect I use is here, and we added that, remember, to play music. And that's why I like having mech at the beginning of all these sounds, because it makes it super easy to find. Because some of these tables have hundreds of sounds on them, even in music. It's crazy. So here's the different sounds. Metal, plastic, that's the one we're using. And all it is for ball rolling, as soon as a ball's created, it plays that sound in a loop. That's literally all it's doing. And then as the ball moves, it changes its pitch and its volume dynamically. Because that's one thing that's cool about Future Pinball is that it has built-in audio options where you can change the pitch and other things on the fly as the game goes on. So that applies not just to sound effects, it plays to music as well, which is really cool actually. So it's super simple, as soon as the ball is created, well, it's always playing this ball rolling sound. But if the ball's not moving fast enough, then the volume is at 0. Once the ball starts moving fast enough, the volume increases, but then also the faster the ball moves, the pitch also changes at the same time. So that's why, it just automatically works. And because with Future Pinball, we need a play music channel to make this happen. You can't do this with a play sound. We have to dedicate one channel to ball rolling sound on Future Pinball. And for this example that I'm using right now, it's 8, and it seems to be working just fine. Well, actually, we haven't tested that yet. I'll have to show you afterwards. But what you have to do is you have to determine what play music channel you're going to use for ball rolling that is not used on the rest of the table. So you have to determine that, and it's every table is going to be different. I mean, the one easy way to try to do it is just type play music and go throughout the entire table and see what's using what. So if it's like play music channel 8, in the case of this table, so it'd be like play music space 8. But this table isn't using anything like that. Actually, this is more what it's doing right here. It's using play music, and then it'd be 4 or 5 or 6 or 1 or 2, 3 in this case. But it's not using 8, it looks like, from what I can see. So in this case, it's okay, but you have to check your table. Because if you don't, as soon as, like, you could have music playing or a sound effect or something playing, and as soon as the ball starts rolling, it's going to stop that music because it's using the same channel, right? Future Pinball has 8 channels. So you just have to figure out which one to use. Uh, that's not being used for any other purposes in the whole table. Sometimes I've had to change tables to make it work. Make certain sounds use the same channel that they normally wouldn't have. It's rare. It's pretty rare to have to do that. So yeah, and that's it for that. Now, since I'll just show you real quick. We've been using PUP SSF. It's enabled at the top here. So you can manually enable or disable DOF and PUP SSF. If you do not have them installed on your PC, that's fine. The table script will disable those functions automatically. So you don't have to worry about that. They're not required to run these tables, but if you have them, it's an extra option, an extra feature, and it will make use of those. So in this case, I'm going to disable it. All right. And actually, I'll save the table since we haven't done anything for a while. So now we're not going to be using PUP SSF. So sounds are going to be a little different now. They're probably going to be a little bit lower. All right. So just to give you an example here. Okay. So if we turn the Future Pinball sound level completely off, because that's what the mechanical sounds are using for Future Pinball sounds, right? Because we're not using PUP SSF right now. If you crank it up, right? Now our music is all the way down, because just for this video, right? So that's why you're not hearing any ball rolling. You're not hearing music either, right? But you're hearing all the other sounds. So you can hear all the mechanical stuff automatically happening. Oh, nice live catch. All right, so if you want to hear music or ball rolling, you have to increase the music, right? So there you go. Just like it was with PUP SSF. It might be a little bit lower, but again, you can change the volume however you want. It's not supposed to be loud, like you don't want the ball rolling to be super loud. Like even this might be too loud, right? So everyone's gonna be different, but I made sure it was loud enough that you guys could actually hear it. Hopefully. Because normally when I'm playing, I usually don't hear the ball rolling that much, so. But it's there for people who like to have it. It's really cool for SSF. If you have SSF in a cabinet, it sounds really cool. So there you go. And that's it for ball rolling. Pretty straightforward and simple. It's all automatic. You just change your settings as you need, and the music channel is the only thing that you really have to watch. That's the big one. Make sure this guy is not interfering with anything else. And that's it for that. Okay, so I think, yes, we are. Okay, so I'm telling you that you save, close, Future Pinball, reload while testing. Well, we already showed that, right? And it's not something I just, make up. It's legit, People don't follow it sometimes, and they'll just exit out of a table if they have a problem and try it again, and they don't understand that you have to close Future Pinball every time. Every time you exit a table, whether it's a crash, an error, or you're just exiting the table for some reason. Close Future Pinball, reload everything again. You'll have no problems if you do that every single time, okay? So at this point, we're pretty much done with FizX dynamics ball sounds and ball rolling sounds. So as I say here, what should be working at this point? FizX should be pretty good. Nothing amazing, but you may have to still tune stuff for your personal preference. Ball hit sounds should be working, which they are. Ball rolling sounds should be working, and ball hit sounds should be working for SSF and Future Pinball. Okay. So what won't be working at this point? FLEEP sounds and SSF for table controlled items and events. So that we're talking flippers, bumpers, slings, drop targets, and whatever. Now this table already has its own built-in Future Pinball sounds, But that's not what this is talking about. This is talking about us using the new PinMechSound command that will replace the boring old single sounds that the table already has with FLEEP sounds that will change up each time they're used for a little bit of variance that sound way better. But it also operates as SSF, so they're positional sounds as well. And on top of that, they will also output DOF for any cabinets who have feedback hardware like solenoids. So that's the next part that we're going to have to do. And I also point out here about PUP SSF sound compared to Future Pinball game sounds. So as I've been doing in this video, you didn't realize it, but I took the sound that is normally maxed all the way high on Future Pinball's volume, and here actually I'll do it right now. Future Pinball's SSF sound comparison and volume levels are dramatically different sometimes depending on your setup. So I'll just show you here. So this is Future Pinball when it's cranked, okay? It's very loud compared to everything else. Okay, now that's not SSF, but this is, okay? So you can barely hear the ball rolling compared to all of Future Pinball sounds, which are very loud. Whereas if I turn Future Pinball sounds down more, now you can hear the mechanical sounds more. Now this, again, for all the ball hit stuff, that's what I'm talking about, and the rolling. Okay? So that's all that's talking about, is that you may have to use reduce Future Pinball's game sound and music levels so that it matches up better with PUP SSF sound levels. It depends on your sound system. It's different for everyone. So I can't give you an all-in-one solution that will work for everyone for that. So at this point, we are basically done all the essentials for physics, ball rolling, and ball hit sounds. It's all done. You know, you would have all your rubber items, everything else all added and done correctly. So now we would move on to the final part, which is mechanical sounds and feedback. So this part isn't that hard. It's actually a lot easier than you think it is. This is basically replacing all the mechanical event sounds with our PinMechSound equivalent command to control everything for DOF, SSF, and Future Pinball automatically. So it's going to take a little bit of explanation, but it's not hard to do. And it doesn't take too long once you understand how to do it. All right. So to do that, we're going to do a couple things. So we're going to bring this guy over here, and we are going to open the table script. Get over there. There you are. And then we're going to go down to it's not too far down. It's in the mechanical sounds and feedback section, wherever it's at. It may be different depending on what version of this table you got. So what we're going to do is we're going to update each event with one of these sounds. Now, I've already pasted a lot of preset ones for you already. So you don't have to do them from scratch or anything like that because they're already set up for the example table. So with the example table, we have the same stuff, right? It's all the same code and commands at the top. So the idea is we want to basically replace the play sound command for when a flipper turns on and off. We don't want that, right? We want to use this command here. And I've just made it easier by putting these in separate subs. So all you do is you just copy this generic command back to the action in the table script. So for example, this guy here goes back to when the left flipper solenoid is turned on, right? we have him here. If there's any command there, a play sound command for like a flipper solenoid, you remove those because we're replacing that with our own. Okay? You don't want both. And you just keep going. Now see, that's the only time it's used in this particular game, right? Same idea with the off. You just look for every instance that flipper solenoid is turned off, right? That same one. Same name. Sorry. Same name. And when the solenoid is turned off, that's when we're going to paste this in at the same time, okay? So just look at the example table to get an idea of how they're used. If you have additional flippers, now in the example table we have an upper right flipper, so that's why we have extra ones on here. So you don't have to know everything in here, but to understand how this command is being used, it's all explained up here, okay? The actual command here, that's the actual command that we're using, and then these are the parameters that we're going to use with it. So sound is the actual sound file that we're using. Future Pinball item is an item on the Future Pinball table. So you have to have something on there because that's telling what position it is for SSF, right? The volume that's being used, so that's a generic setting for Future Pinball more than anything. You usually don't have to adjust that. You just use the max volume. The DID is for DOF, so that's going to, well here, let me go through. So yeah, command, sound. In this case, we're using multiple sounds for each time we use it. That's why we have this extra stuff here for FLEEP sounds. It means that we're going to use at least 5 sounds, and it's going to pick a random sound every time. And they all start with this part of the name. This is telling the command that we're going to play the sound at the position of the left flipper. No, not there. So the sound in SSF 3D space will play from wherever this is on the play field inside a virtual pinball cabinet. And this is our volume. So volume up there. DOF ID is the trigger number that we're going to use. In the case of flippers, it's between 801 to 809 for the DOF config that I'm using for you guys. And then this number here is the action. In the case of a flipper and only flippers, the action for turning it on would be on. And then here is the type of sound / feedback device that it is. And that's the D type, and you get all of those here. So again, command, sound file, item on the Future Pinball table, the same name that it uses, volume, the DOF trigger name, and these are the ones you can use, the action, and the type of device that it is. Okay, so you're gonna do. I already have a bunch of these done for you as examples. You know, so I mean, it's not too hard. These are mostly what you're gonna be using anyway. So, for this guy here, right? Oh, actually, before we even do any of that, all right. So that's I was describing everything in here. Okay, that we were just talking about that. You know, the Future Pinball item name here must be something with a name in the Future Pinball editor. You can't give it a name of something that doesn't have it has to have a name and an XY position. So for example, I can't use left slingshot rubber, right? For an item name because it has no XYZ positioning. I can, however, use something like a flipper because it has a name and it has the XY positioning. So that's why I can use left flipper, but for the slingshot, I can't. So I have to use something else. So I use the left inlane trigger because hopefully on this table it has it. Okay, so it's a different name. So in that case, I'm going to have to change it, right? Because this has an XY position and a name. So I can change that here. Oop, hold on. And same idea over here. Because you have to give it something with a coordinate on the table. If you don't do that, then it'll give you an error. So that's why it's important to make sure these are all done correctly. All right, the flippers are done correctly. Slingshots are now done correctly. The bumpers, let's see. I don't know if they're using the same name or not, but they should be. So we got bumper 3, bumper 2, and 1. Yeah, so those are okay. Because again, they have a name and an XY position. So our bumpers are named okay. Now in the case of a plunger on this table, we don't have an auto plunger. We do have a kickback though. And we do have a normal plunger. So we have to make sure, here, I'm going to bring this over here to make it easier. So let's check our kickback while we're at it. We'll just check that. Okay, so that's not the name of it. So we have to change it to that. Now we're gonna relink all these later on to where they're supposed to go. It's easier just to go through this first. The auto plunger, well, we don't have one, so we can remove that. So the plunger pole, we have to see if we have that. Okay, so this one's a different name, so there we go. Look at that. No, I guess the OGs don't use the same names everyone else does. All right. Now I'm going to show you a difference here. These are all ones that are dealing with anything that has a solenoid. A flipper has a solenoid, slingshot has a solenoid, bumper uses a solenoid. For something like the plunger pole, we want a positional sound, but there's no solenoid involved. So for this command, you'll notice it's different. It's the same command, you know, so the command, sound name, the location of an item that we want the sound, the play from, the volume, but then for these other sections, we just leave them blank because we're not using a DOF trigger and we're not using a DOF action because there is no device to associate with that. So we just want a sound. That's it, a sound. But it's still going to use this for SSF and Future Pinball sounds as well. So that's why we have both in here. And we got more of these type down here as well, right? So it's not just for mechanical devices, it's also for mechanical actions that don't involve you know, a ball hit or you want a very specific type of sound for that event to go on. That's mechanical, but it's not solenoid based, for example. So I also want to show here that I mentioned before that for the flipper commands, for the on flipper command, the DOF trigger will be on, so that's 1. But for the off command, it's going to be 0. Okay? These are the only ones that we use a 1 for on and a 0 for off for the trigger action. Okay? They're only flippers. Nothing else will use that. For everything else, they're pulses. They just pulse a quick action. They don't stay on and then and they keep on. They just quickly pulse, and that's all they do, right? So that's why you use 2 for all of these types of actions, because they're just a pulse. So I just wanted to point that out because, and I think I mentioned that in here. I'm not sure if I didn't. I'm pretty sure I mentioned it in here somewhere. Oh, actually, yeah, I did mention it in there. Never mind. So it's very important that you guys understand that, okay? And I've preset most of this already, but I'm just explaining what's in each of these commands for you and the little changes you may have to make so that they work correctly. Because if you don't, they will give an error. So, you know, when you go to use these subroutines. So it's very important that you have all this set up correctly. All right, so our everything up to this point is correct. Our kickback's correct. Our plunger pulls are correct because they're just sounds, but we still needed the changes for the item position. So a plunger kicker. Okay, so that's this guy here. So yep, he's got the right name right there. So that's good. Okay, so that's every time he kicks out from here. Because it's a generic solenoid, it's not like a bumper or a slingshot. We just call it a solenoid. Okay, because remember, we have those options up here, right? Because whatever you choose here is controlled based on these guys here. So if someone doesn't want any of those sounds or solenoids or anything to activate on their cabinet because they just don't want to for some reason, they want only sounds, or they want solenoids and no sounds, and that's why we have this here. That's what these are all for, and that's why we specify what type of event it's going to be, right? What kind of feedback it's going to be. So that's why these are all here. Okay. So now we're into kickers. So we got the plunger kicker. That one's fine. And again, you'll notice the DOF used for anything that's solenoid based, not just sound based. We're using these DOF trigger numbers. So this is like the first one in that range, so we could just use 840. We could use 841, 842, 843, but I just start from 840 and work my way up. It's the numbers I use in the config file on the DOF config tool website. So just follow these numbers and you'll be fine. Now there are other kickers on here that I'll get to. I just want to make sure that the basic ones are okay. All right, so I'll come back to the kickers because we have to add a bunch of those. But for drop targets, we can keep this pretty simple instead of going too crazy. Now you can have where these are a separate action and these are a separate action. It's really up to you. In the case of this one, yeah, we can use this. Okay. So every time these drop targets are hit, we can use, it doesn't matter, we can use the first one. Just make sure, this is done at the end after you've done everything else before at this point. Because if you change the names on anything, then this won't work, right? So you have to, that's why you do things in order. All right, so hit, drop target, reset. So every time these guys are hit and reset, it's going to use that position. So we have enough for these guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change these drop targets left hit. And drop targets left reset. All right. So now, because we have other ones that we can use, I'm just going to do this. So center. There you go. And then we're going to increase these numbers. So we'll just go like there and there, because they're different events. So we want them to use different trigger numbers, right? And you notice we add here, it's a drop target being hit, and it's a drop target being reset, which means it's going to pop up. Now, we don't always have to use DOF events for this. Some people want to, some people don't. It's really down to personal preference. Honestly, in this case, you know what? Yeah. You know what? Because this is just a drop target is just dropping, and it's just going to be noise because it's not a solenoid action. There you go. That's actually more correct. So that way, it's only the sound of the drop target coming down, but you don't want a solenoid in a cabinet actually going off when that happens, because that's not how these work, right? you want a solenoid going off when they reset because that's pushing all the targets back up. Because when they get pulled down, they're just a spring is all they are. You know, it's just a spring that pulls them down, typically. All right, so our drop targets are good. All right, so and I'm going to come back to the kickers afterwards because that's going to be a lot more work. But what I will do, though, is, where was that one? Yeah, okay. So this section here is all just sound-based stuff. So in other words, what that means is it's just going to be for things like coin or drain or nudge or rollover, you know, switches, things like that. There's no solenoids. There's no, like, you know, active mechanical device. You know, this is just, we want specific mechanical related sounds at a specific location for a specific event. And that's what this section is used for. So for the drain, well, it's just going to play a drain sound every time the drain is hit. So we just have to make sure that, you know, we play it where we want it to play it, right? So hold on. Let's see, where is that? Okay. Okay, so in this case, the drain, again, XY, has a name. So we can use that for the drain command here, right? Now, when we insert a coin, same idea. We can use that for the drain command, right? We don't need to fill this other stuff in because there's no solenoid, there's no DOF involved. You know, it's just a sound that we're using, right? For nudge, I just use the drain again. When it makes a nudge sound, that's the position it'll play it from. You can change that if you want. For the rollovers, now in this case, we had this guy here. So I had to change that name. So that's what I did, right? So the left roller, and then you can have the out lane if you want. It doesn't matter. You know, it depends on how picky you want to get, right? There you go. And then for the right, same thing. As long as they have a name, and as long as they have a position, an XY position, that's all you need. And these guys are set. They're good. All right, so everything in here is good except we have kickers that we have to set up now. Now, kickers typically have two actions. An action for when they get hit, like when the ball rolls into the kicker. It's just a sound. And then you have the other action is where if it kicks the ball out, that's a solenoid. So that's something we want to use with DOF, right? So in the case of this guy, we already have him set up. He's the plunger kicker, right? What I do is I make a sub with the name of PinMechSound, and then I put the name of the actual device as it's shown in here. Because that way this matches up with that. It makes it easier to track and know what you're working with. So let's just take a look at the other kickers we have in here. All right, so this one here is just a generic one I threw in there for you guys. So let's just do this. So we have kicker dock. All right. So we can use that for this guy here. So when he gets hit, that's what this is going to be for. When he kicks the ball out, then we'll use that. Okay, so that's what we're going to use for that. We got two more here. So let's do the same thing here. And then we'll just, excuse me, then we'll just find the name. All right, kicker top right. And then we'll do that, and then that. Okay, now because we made extra DOF commands, we have to give a different trigger number, right? Whoops, sorry, that's because it's a different event. You know, you don't want them all doing the same thing all the time because then you're going to have the same solenoid firing off for 3 different events at the same time kind of thing, right? So you want them to be separate. And that's top right, okay, and then we have top left, I bet. Yep, kicker top left. All right, so we'll just do the same thing because we already have the sounds that we want. So I'll just go like this. And I'll go like this. Then I'll go like that. And then I'll go like that. And same thing. Oh, I actually jumped ahead there. 841 and then 842. There we go. Now they're all actual separate ones. And again, they pulse, right? Because they're solenoids. They just pulse on and off real quick. The bumpers are the flippers are the only ones that have a 1 and a 0 for on and off. Everything else that is a solenoid type device, only a pulse. All right, so that's good, I think. Yeah. So we got all the main devices that we want. Now you can go crazy, like doing every single rollover if you want. Like you can really go nuts if you really, 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 really want. But honestly, with the FizX dynamic ball sounds, you really don't need them as much as you normally used to. Like, we used to go nuts on every single thing all over the table, and this thing would be like 4 times as long, like this section here, you know. If you want to use even more stuff, you have extra triggers that you can do here. So if there's more devices than what's on here that are not, say a kicker or something like that, then you can use those down here if you really need to. But keep them within the ranges if you can. So like, I mean, you got plenty to work with, right? Because these are all set up ahead of time by me on the configuration that this is going to use, right? It's just a generic configuration. It's not unique to this table. This is way beyond the scope of what we're doing on here. But yeah, if you want to go crazy with more of these sounds, with more things throughout the entire table, then you can do that. Like if you had wire ramps and you wanted to have a sound for when it hit certain things on the wire, you can. But because we have more dynamic sounds now, automatically done through FizX, it's not needed as much as it used to be. So, my recommendation is do the bare bones stuff like this, play the table if you're happy with everything. Great. If not, then add the extra specific sounds that you want. Look at my other table examples, my other pin event V2 table examples to get an idea of the kind of sounds that I add. And I'm going to be changing them all for this new version of the code, right? After I'm done this video. So yeah, there's a lot you can do with this stuff, guys. So now that this is done, okay, you're going to save the table. So you have one more thing, and it takes a bit to do, all right? So what you have to do now is you have to find the actions and link all these to every action on the table. So this takes a little while, but it's not too bad. You can use the example table like I showed you, you can like just look for the same device. So what I tend to do is, and that's what I'm telling you here, is that you need to link everything after you update everything here correctly. You need to link everything back to the rest of the table so that it works fine. However, there's one extra step you have to do that I forgot about. You have to go to each of these items in the editor and make sure there's no sound being used. Okay, that's going to vary for each table. So let's try this guy. See, so he's got one. We don't want that. Okay, drain does not. This, I don't think, is there a sound for this? Or not that, sorry. I don't think there is a sound for this, no. For this guy, is there a sound? No. This guy, is there a sound? No. I don't think yeah, I'm pretty sure I did remove it for that. I'm not going to worry about that. For all of these guys, again, if they had sounds, you'd want to go through each and every one of them to make sure they don't have sounds, okay? This kicker does not have a sound. Wow, I'm surprised what's lacking on this table for sounds. Wow. But that's the thing. If they don't have sounds on here, they'll probably have it in the table script. So you have to check both, right? So, and we're going to do that because that's part of what we're going to replace. So in the bumpers, I'm pretty sure they did not have sounds. No. Okay, so I think that's all the main noise makers there. Yeah, I think we're okay. So now, what we do is we start from the top, and the easy thing to do is highlight the item name that you entered. So most of these should be the right one. Some of these you're gonna have to do different on, and then copy the sub that you're gonna use for the action, and then just in this case we're looking for left flipper everywhere in the table script. Okay, so it's gonna take a while. Here, actually, we're gonna. I'm just gonna go way down here past all our FizX code because it's gonna come up a lot. Yeah, it's gonna be quite a bit actually. There we go. So after all this, we'll start there. So, all right. So left flipper solenoid on. That play sound is the sound we want to replace because we're putting our own sound in there, right? So you can look for every instance of left flipper, and actually you can even put a dot on there to try to narrow it down more. So we'll come back to the offs, but we just want to get the ons for now. Okay, so don't do it, put it in here, because this is for the FizX code. Do not put anything in the FizX code. Do not change it, do not modify it, okay? So now that we have that, okay, so that one's okay. I can just go back to there. So now we're gonna look for left flipper off, okay? So again, we can just do that. There, I'll just do it the easier way. I think I got that right. Is that off? Oh, there we go. All right, what did I do wrong there? Oh, jeez. What am I doing wrong here? Jeez. Understand, guys, I'm doing this from a far distance on a TV, not a monitor. So we'll just do this. There we go. Okay. So now I'm looking for every instance of solenoid being off. You can do it like this if you want, using a colon to separate it. Okay. All right. I think that was the last one that we had to do. Yeah. All right. Then I'm just going to go past all that. So that went past that. Okay, so we're good there. All right. So the left flipper is done. Same thing for the right. Okay. No, I'm terrible at this. There we go. All right. So in this case, same thing. It's got the sound, right? We're replacing the sound. No, not in the FizX stuff. No. Okay, so it's only showing up. So just be careful. Make sure you're not replacing any FizX code. All right. All right. So that's on. That's good. And then we'll go back to here. And then we'll do off. All right. Oh, see, I screwed that one up. Look at that. Look at that. So right flipper off. Right flipper off. Ah, screwed that up. Where was I? Darn it. Okay, so in that case, yes, right flipper off. Right flipper off. Not in the FizX code. Okay, so our flippers are done because we only have 2 of them, right? If you had upper flippers and all that, then you would do that, but we do not have additional flippers, so that's fine. We can get rid of that. Okay, save that. Now, in the case of the slingshot, it's a little different because it's not using this as a reference, it's using this as a reference because it's a rubber, right? But I know what the sub is. There you go, and look, it's got the sound. Now, understand some of these sounds are effects, they're not mechanical sounds, because in this case, they were sounds being done in the editor. So you have to be careful about what you're replacing, right? So in this case, we know it's that. Now, I know this is the right slingshot, so I can just do this from memory. There you go. Now both of those are set. So these are good. Same thing with bumpers. So actually, I just found it funny that one, it doesn't, as long as it's a proper table item, these names aren't, they don't have to be perfect as long as they're, close enough. It just has to be a proper name and XY position for what you're using. All right, so, oh, shoot. Okay, so this is interesting. Okay, so in this case, we have to add that on there. I just realized that. Because on the example table, there was no code for the bumper, right? It just automatically hit, automatically. There was no code set up for it. So just be careful about what you're doing and make sure you have no duplicate subs. So in this case, so now I can do that. Is there any sounds? Ah, see, this is where it gets tricky because there's a sound for the bumper there. Ah, see, you got to be careful. So they have various different sounds that they're using. Interesting. So let me take a look and see what that is. Bumper. This is why I name my stuff the way I do, for this very reason. All right, so these are just very, very terrible, boring sounds. So I'm going to remove these altogether, okay? Because I don't want them. Okay. Because some tables will do that. They'll have sounds only in each one, or they'll have one single sub that will play the same sounds for each one, right? So you have to kind of follow up and be careful of what's actually being used. So in this case, it's bumper 1. Actually, hold on. In this case, does it have the solenoid going off? No, it doesn't. Because some of these are automatic devices that when they're hit, they just automatically make a solenoid go off. In this case, that's what they are. So you have to kind of pay attention to where you're putting it on. So in this one, I'm just going to keep it simple, keep it at the top. That way it's getting triggered each time no matter what. And then we'll do it for 2. And then we'll do it for 3. All right. So our bumpers are done. All right, so 1, 2, 3. So now kickback. This should be easy. So just look for it. Every time it pulses, you want to use it. See? Nothing much there, right? Oh, hold on, no. Kickback, light the flash. No, see, we don't want the solenoid sound because we're using that ourselves. There you go. All right. Plunger pull. That's going to be, I don't know if there's actually anything going to be in there for that. So for that, we're going to have to check the key press codes because there's probably not going to be anything in here for that. Yeah. Let's see here. Oh, okay, we'll get to that. Yeah, I don't see anything there for that. So we're going to go to the keys section and see if there's anything there. No, not in play. I want the keys, man. Give me the keys. You know, like the dude said on 16 Candles. Give me the keys, man. Alright, so coin key, no. Plunger key, okay, so we can use that. There you go. Plunger pull, plunger pull. That works. And then, then we need to release one, right? So, and then key released, plunger release. That's the one we want to look for, right? So we're done. Hold on, let's find her. Find her. Okay. Nectarine hit, coin in, nudge. Where was that plunger pull? Where the heck? Oh, there it is. Okay. So, plunger release. There you go. Perfect. Alright, so now our plunger and kickback is done. So now we're going to go to the kickers. These should be pretty easy. So you want to have it, what I do is okay, in this case it's going to be whenever the solenoid goes off. Okay, there you go. Okay, so in this case, it's every time the Docker is going to be hit. So it's easy just to do this. There you go. So every time it gets hit, it's not controlled because it's every time a ball hits the darn thing. So we always want that to happen, right? And that's it. Because it's not solenoid based, it's just the ball hitting it. And this is something we're manually doing, right? That's why it doesn't have any DOF actions here. Because it's just a sound. It's just a ball hitting something and the sounds that it makes. So in this case, we want it to be every time it's a solenoid pulse, right? So I'll get rid of the solenoid sound. Okay, so it's only that one time. And oh yes, we just did that, that's right, okay. Kicker top right, hit. So we just do that. And it's not a solenoid, it's just the ball hitting the thing, so we want it to do that every time. And I'm not seeing any. Okay, well, we'll come back to that, I guess. Hit, yes. I'm not sure if that's right, though. What is that? Let's see that. Ball eject. There you go. Oh. Okay, that's why you do that. See? You gotta be careful what you remove, right? So we got that. And then we'll do the kicker top right. I know it's not exciting, guys, but I figured I'd just show you all of it so that way, you know, if you have any questions, well, you know exactly how to do it. Okay, so we want top right, solenoid. Oh, hold on here, we want that. Okay, replace the solenoid sound. Okay. We already did that one. Okay. And this one is when it's hit. Every time, so we want to always do that. Because sometimes these are controlled, right? You gotta really pay attention to the subroutines sometimes, depending on certain conditions, right? And then for this, oh, sorry, I wanted that. Okay. Oh, wait, hold on. Which one? Top. Oh, never mind. There we go. That's simple enough. All right. That's that guy. Okay, let's just save this because I like to save it more often. All right, so drop targets. So this would be easier just to follow the 4-bank. Now this might be a little tricky, but we'll see. All right, so in this case, it's only a sound, so we want to do it every time, right? Because we're doing this for all those specific top left drop targets every time they're hit, right? It's just a collision sound, that's all it is. Okay, and then oh yeah, see that's something I actually messed up on. Well, forgot, not messed up on. And for this, 3-bank too. For these guys. All right, so for our reset, that's gonna be a little trickier. Let's just find every instance, not just the hits. Okay, so whenever it's a pulse, that's a reset. However, this is a little trickier, just because, yeah, but see, these are individual sound targets being popped up one at a time, right? But yeah, I guess that's what we want. So yeah, because they're being reset. So we'll do that for each of these. Same as a Star Wars Death Star Assault, you know, they do the same thing. Okay, let's see if there's any other. That's solenoid. So that's the only one. Okay, good. Okay, we'll try 2 solenoid. Okay, 3. Okay, so there's none left. Good. So in this case, we'll do the 3-bank. Hit. Okay. Oh, rubber hit. I didn't notice those. Let's take a look at that. Okay, so see, that's where terrible naming conventions. Oh, that's the rubber being hit. Okay, never mind. Never mind. Oh, that's why. Okay. I'm being a dummy. 2 hit. There we go. Yeah. Let's see here. 3-bank 1 hit. Yes, that's what we want. 3 bank 2 hit. Because these are just collisions. Okay. And then the last one for that is reset. We're almost there, guys. The rest of this is super easy. Okay, so let's just 3 bank 2. This can be just like the other one. Alright, so yeah, we'll just do that then. Alright, that should be it. Okay, our drop targets are now all done. So drain is usually very easy because it's just an actual drain of the ball hitting the drain, right? Oops, shoot. Okay, so place on drain, just make sure it's not something silly that they've added. Alright, God, that some of these old Future Pinball sounds are so old, man. Okay, so that's good. Drain hit is done. Coin. So usually that's pretty standard. Yeah. Insert a coin. There you go. Now nudge is almost always in a tilt sub. Like a tilt warning, or I'm trying to remember now. Or warning, I think it is. Let's. What is it now? I'm trying to remember now where that is. Here, just look for every instance of tilt. It's a lot, but sometimes that's what I gotta do. Or wait, can't we just do warning? Yeah. That's why, okay. There you go. So when we nudge, you know, it'll do that. Let's just check the sound. It's probably some annoying sound. It's later at night, that's why I'm talking quieter, guys. Alright, so that's done. Alright, these should be very, very quick because they're just straightforward. Okay, these are just mechanical, so that's all we care about. Oh, wrong ones. Okay, so that's done. And that's done. And that's done. All right. Okay, guys. Okay, so I know that was long and painful and boring. Welcome to my world. That's what it's like when I update these tables for all this kind of stuff. It's not the most exciting stuff to do, but it's what's necessary. And this is way quicker and easier than it was before. So trust me, this new example table and this new code and these examples I give you guys make it way easier than it was before. Trust me. So yeah, so I mean, this should be good. Now I'm gonna do a test, but hold on. DOF enabled is true. SSF enabled. We're gonna try it in Debugger and see how it sounds and how it turned out. Now, okay, see now you can hear all the sounds being used for the drop targets, right? So if you look at the debugger, it's showing all the extra information I added for the SSF event and what type of item it's being used, what kind of sound is being used, because all these are now no longer what was on the table originally. They're all now being controlled by the PinMechSound commands for the flippers, the slings, for the drop targets, for the bumpers, for the kickers, for the plunger, kickback. It's all now fully supported for DOF, for solenoids, for what uses solenoids, for SSF. So it's going to give positional feedback in a virtual pinball cabinet for anyone who has that kind of setup, or a 5-1 surround sound setup, or a 7-1 surround sound setup. And it'll also, but if we don't enable that, then it'll just output it for Future Pinball like normal, So it's all automatically set up. So see the coin, so see now you can see, it shows when I put the coin in, it's telling me it's an SSF sound, and it's not positional or anything like that, right? So that's why it's showing that. And there you go. That's our drop targets being reset. And there you go. Now we have the FLEEP sounds for the flippers being used. You notice on the left there on the debugger, the sounds change every time they're used. It's a random sound each time, for up and down. Which there was no sound originally for down, I don't think. If there was, you couldn't tell. If we do nudge too much, you can barely hear it, but it did the nudge sound. Now if we pull the flipper back, here, I'll turn the music down. That way you can hear it better. Here. Okay, so there you go. So now you're going to hear the plunger. And when I release it. So now everything should be working. There you go. Listen to that, man. Holy crap. Wow, what a difference, guys. Like, what a difference. Like, holy cow, man. Like, this is like a night and day difference. Holy crap, man. I'm just going to play a little bit here, guys, just so you can hear how everything's playing out here. So see, there's an example. That kicker, I probably changed the strength for that kicker. So I'm just gonna do this for a second here. So there's still other things I haven't updated. I'm not gonna do it in this video, but there's still other sounds that I have not added for other things on the table. For example, the targets, I didn't add any mechanical sounds for them being hit. So that has to be manually added. So you just do the same thing that we did for all these other things. You would add a PinMechSound event for sound only, no DOF. And same thing for the gate. You know, like if I want to have a sound for or not the gate, the spinner. If I want to have a spinner sound, I can add that. I hate this one. For the gates and as well, if you want to add gate sounds, you can add that as well for every time the gate is hit. All these rollovers, if you want to add them for that. But yeah, look at that. All that mechanical sound is working. Like, this is awesome. Like this completely changes this game for me already, because I never really had much interest in this game, to be honest. You know, I need more than a score for pinball games. You know, that's just the way I am. But man, like this is like come alive for me now. This is like a night and day difference, and I haven't even touched the lighting or anything, which I'm not going to do in this video. But you know, holy crap! Wow, what a difference, guys! Like I can't believe that. I'll turn the music up a little bit. Yeah, so I mean, here it is, man. Like friggin' all in one shot. Like, you know, no breaks. Completely updated this table for FizX, a night and day difference. And I haven't even attempted to tune things in yet. Full FLEEP sounds, full dynamic ball collision sounds for every material on the table. All mechanical sounds for surround sound feedback, for Future Pinball, for DOF, for solenoids. Like, already done. Already done. On a table that's never had anything like that ever attempted before. God, I'm afraid to try to go back and try the original, you know, without all this, because yeah, it's just you can't even compare them. You can't even compare them. Wow. Wow. Just playing a little bit here, guys. Having some fun. Look at that. Give her a nudge. All right. And if you've been paying attention on the left side, you know, it shows the ball rolling info. Like it shows pretty much everything that's going on here. I'm not sure if it showed DOF. It probably won't because it's automatically showing all that. But I don't think because I have a config run on this yet. It's been a while. I'm going to just take another quick look. But yeah, I don't think it's going to show the DOF stuff because of all the other stuff that's going on. Oh, shoot, I didn't even see it. Okay, well, here's what you can do. When you run a debugger like that, right, you just go to where the file, where would that be? No, it'd be Future Pinball and tables updated. No, tables, Sci-fi. Yeah, let's go with modified. There we go. It made a debug file automatically. So it shows, did it show? Okay, so it shows DOF is able, and it is using the config. So I'd have to test that on the cabinet to be sure it's working. But normally that should be working just fine. So there you go, guys. I mean, geez, I don't know what else to say. I know, except it's one hell of a long video. Now we're not quite completely done yet. There's one last little thing we got to do. We got to add 2 commands to this Future Pinball end play. The reason why we add that is to make sure that DOF and PUP get closed out correctly. Normally, like, when you exit Future Pinball, sorry, not that. This will make sure that those guys get closed out nice and clean. It's for both DOF and PUP, if nothing else screws up. And that's it, dudes. Like, wow. And at the end of this tutorial, like, because we just went, now I went through the same stuff I just described here in the tutorial. That's what all that stuff we just did was about, was making sure we used the command with the right sounds that we wanted, the right table item, the volume, and a DF trigger and action if it's a solenoid-based type action. If it's just a sound-based action, then you just, do it the way I showed you guys. And then if someone wants to enable or disable DOF or SSF, they can do it in those sections as I showed you. And we added this stuff at the end, which is good. And the debugger, which can show you everything you need to know. Like, it's awesome, guys. So holy crap. Holy crap, man. So I think that's about it. You just go back and retune everything. So the only other things I can add would be for the PhysX. Now, I'm not going to go through all the settings, guys. I'm just not going to go through them all. This has already been a the longest video I've ever done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to enable both of these guys here. Okay? So now, when I launch the table, oh, that's one thing I forgot to mention. When you're done tuning your settings in here, okay, you're happy with everything that's in here, make sure you apply the similar settings to the other sections as needed. So you have other profiles is what I mean, right? So I didn't add any extra rubbers. So I'm just gonna, update the rubber section and the flipper angles, right? So I changed the flipper angle to 50. So on profile 2, the bouncier flippers profile, I'm just gonna make sure everything's the same. Okay. Now you have 2 more profiles that run the PhysX at a lower frame rate, and it has a few different settings that are different on that. Not many, So same thing. Just make sure the swing angle is correct, and our rubbers are good. And just make sure swing angle is correct for the last one, for the bouncy flippers one, and our rubbers are good. There you go. And that's it. There you go, man. Like, holy cow. So what was I going to say? Oh, yeah, that's right. So let's load up the table. And I'm just going to show you the FizX Tweaker Tool really quick. I've shown this on previous videos, but I figured I'd show it on here since we've added it and that's a feature we can use. So let's say you want to change the flipper physics or some other settings to test them to see if you want to change anything, right? So because I enabled those 2 options for the FizX Tweaker Tool and the profile changer, when I push F, ooh, look at that. Okay. So I don't think I have. Oh, let me hold on a second. I might have something I have to check here. I might not have the font that I need. Let's take a look. Remember I mentioned that before? Let's take a look. If I don't get this working, then you can just watch my other video on that, because I'm not going to spend all day, trying to do this. But we have to make sure I have this font, okay? So DMD 0505P, and then hopefully see what's going on with that. Maybe I got the video settings incorrectly set. No, they're all good. All right. Oh, not that. I need to make sure the fonts are good. Is there a font? There you are. Oh, well, that might be why. Okay. We have no fonts. Wow. I think that's a first for me, that seeing a table with literally no fonts. So here you go. Here's a way for you to know how to do this. So we go to the new table example, and the one we need is right here. We just export that to wherever you need to, I guess. We'll just put it through Future Pinball, I guess. Yeah, we'll just do that. Okay. And wow, that's a first, man. I don't think I've ever seen that. And there's our DMD. There you go. Wow, that's a first. I mean, it doesn't have a DMD on this table, so I guess that makes sense. And this was probably made before DMDs were an option on Future Pinball. Now that I think about it, that's kind of funny, actually. All right, so let's see. There we go. All right, well, see, there. Never had that happen before, so look at that. We solved the problem right there. All right, so this is the FizX Tweaker Tool. Now, this may vary depending on what version is used. It may change in the future, but I'm just showing you here. So you go up and down to change options and left, right to change the settings. This will not permanently change your settings in the table. This is just for you to try stuff out while you're playing. And then if you like the changes you made, then you'll just have to remember them, write them down on paper or something. Or if you have another window open, you can copy and paste it into a text file or something. But then you have to go back to the table script and make the changes in the FizX settings to make it permanent. Okay, just make sure you understand that. So, for example, the slingshot threshold, if you want to, make that more or less sensitive, so make it easier for the ball to bounce off of it with less speed, then you change that here. These other settings, I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm just going to go through the main ones that I typically would change. So the base omega and the tip omega are the two I normally change the most. So let's get this thing going here. I turn the music down. We'll go down here. Okay, so the base omega is going to affect this right here. Okay, this area of the flipper. That's the power of that section. Tip omega is this section. Okay, so you can adjust those however you want. The startup value is what is set in the table script when the table loads. On this version of the tool, there may be other versions out there that get used or updated, but as of this example table that I'm using right now, that's what that means. The startup value is what's in the table script. The FPRAM value is what gets saved to the Future Pinball FBRAM. It's kind of like a battery backup RAM on a real pin, if you will. It's just there for the sake of if you want to store settings temporarily, but they're not set on the table. Make that clear. They're not used on the table. They're not set there. They're just there if you want to have a reference to use while you're playing around with different settings. So these are the two I would change probably more or less. Some people will like much more powerful bass. Some people want really powerful tips. You have to play around with it. Live cache difficulty. So if you want it to be easier, then you just put it down. Let's see. We'll try that. Yeah, see, look at that. Way too easy. If you want to make it harder, you increase it. Well, it was a little harder, but not too hard. Yeah, so there you go. So you get the idea there. Here, actually, I'll increase that a little bit, just for demonstration purposes. So the bouncing fall off. So bounce coefficient is the one I would change to make the flippers more bouncy. So 0.9 is kind of a good value, but if you want to go crazy, then because some people you go all the way up to 1, And then I think that's the is that the bouncing coefficient? Is that the right one? It's been a while. Hold on. Flip bouncing fall off. Flip bounce coefficient threshold. Yeah, I think it is that one. Okay, maybe it is that one. It's been a while. I have to play around with it, but I think that's the one I usually make more bouncy. It's been a while, guys. Just bear with me. It's late night. I don't have much sleep. So play around with the bounce settings for that. Flipper static friction. Okay, so these two are ones you can change. They will affect how the ball is affected while it's rolling on the flipper, moving and non-moving. This one, I think, yeah, hold on. Yeah, so this one I think will, if you put it really low, it would then make the shots much wider. Whereas if you put it higher, then it would make the shots more narrow when they come off the flipper. So you have to play around with that, but normally I don't need to change that one much at all, usually, unless it's a table that has really wide shots. Kinetic sensitivity. Oh, that's the one that if you find the ball gets stuck on the flipper for some reason, a lot, instead of acting normal, then try increasing it. But that's pretty high already, so you shouldn't have to change that one. Overspin deleter. So what that will do is that will help to prevent the ball from overspinning too much and rolling out the flipper. So you can see how much that was rolling there, right? So if I turn it on, it might make it harder for it to spin off. Yeah, see? So if you're someone who wants to make the table a little easier, so that way when the ball comes down here, it won't roll off quite as easily, then you turn that on. Again, it doesn't have as much of an effect as it used to, but it still has some effect. So it's up to you if you want to make it more difficult. Rolling effect, I honestly can't remember. I'm not even sure if that's even used anymore. I have to double check that. I don't know if it is. If it is, I can't remember exactly how that works. But so if you make any changes, if you want to apply all the values to from FP RAM that you already had before, say you wanted to save them for a future test or something like that, then you can apply those values now. If you wanted to save all the current settings that you just changed right now to FP RAM to use at a future date, then you can do that. If you want to reset everything to the way it was when the table first loaded, then you can do that. And that's it. That's all there is for now. There are more options, but those are the main ones, guys. So, yeah. So there you go. So, for example, if I save the FizX settings to FP RAM, I just did it. And now if I go to the live catch difficulty, now it shows the FP RAM value at 4. So there you go. So that's it, guys. That's all I wanted to really show. You can play around with this stuff live, like I said before. Let's just try something really quick. All right, so let's go crazy with the tip omega, okay? Super crazy. Okay, so now it's gonna be super powerful off the tip. Yeah, way more powerful than it was before. Way too powerful. So we'll put that back down. But everyone's different. And base omega, so we'll try cranking that like crazy. Now this is gonna be ridiculously too powerful. Yeah, see, so now I can't do a post pass because it's just way too powerful, right? But look how much powerful it is coming off of that, right? So some people like it higher, like maybe at 80, which is not too crazy, because some people like being able to do backhands, right? Oh my goodness. And that was a nice live catch. Anyways. Oh my goodness, sorry guys. So that's that. All right, so if you want to also try to change to different profiles, you can push G if you enabled that. So now I switch, I'm normally on 1, which is the default settings at 512 FPS. If I change to 2, now ideally it should have bouncier flippers. Not crazy bouncy, but a little bouncier. But if I change to 3 or 4, we don't use those because our physics are permanently set for 512 and the XML files in the table script. This will not change that for you. You have to change that yourself before going to this profile. So only change to a profile that matches your FPS. I cannot stress that enough. So we'll try profile 2 now. So now all the settings are automatically changed to whatever was in that profile. And I'll point out, I haven't updated all the rubbers on this table. Like, you know, all the rubbers all around the rest of the table haven't even been updated yet. So once you do that, it'll be a lot even better as far as how the table plays. So here, I'll just see if the flippers are bouncier or not. Yeah, they're definitely bouncier. Oh yeah, definitely bouncier. Oh yeah, look at that. There you go. All right. I mean, that's it, guys. All right. All right. I think that's about it. We can save this sucker and call it a night, man. God, how many hours has it been? Holy cow! I didn't want to look. I honestly have no idea how many hours it's been, guys. I know this has been going forever, but I figured, you know what? If I'm going to do it, I'm going to go from beginning to end. So in this tutorial, the only thing I didn't really do is go through the whole thing for drop targets and do every single rubber. I only did the main ones down here. But the rest, as far as the sounds, you could do more with the targets. Like I said, you can add a mechanical sounds for the targets if you want up here. So you can add more in here if you want for that. And then you would just use the right sound. And then for this, you would just choose this guy and then plop that in there. Use a target hit sound of some sort, and then just name it, and then, you know, copy and paste the sub to every time that target gets hit. So you can do that for all the targets. You can do it for the spinner here. You can do it for the gates every time they get hit. Yeah, it's, you know, little things like that you can do that add that much more to it. It really does help, you know, so. If you go through those extra steps, it really pays off. Normally, the way I did this before is I'd usually do physics in one night. And then I'd do, you know, the SSF manually, like, you know, in the old days, like this kind of stuff. But then all the other triggers for every kind of sound I wanted, it would take forever. Now it's automatic, you know, like it's just all done. So I would do that on another night, you know, and then, you know, for the DOF and that kind of stuff, you know, I would add even more stuff later on for lighting and that kind of thing, you know, but so yeah, wow, man, like this is actually all working just like that. And if I disable SSF, then now we're using Future Pinball sounds. There you go, and whatever we set here will vary the sounds that we're using. See, that ball roll is pretty loud, so you might want to turn that down a little. So much better. Wow. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Yeah. All right. That's it. I'm calling it a night. Okay, so there you go, guys. Beginning to end, We got FizX completely added to a table and updated. We've got full SSF for pretty much almost everything except for the few small things I mentioned. We got full DOF for all solenoid related events, so your flippers, bumpers, slings, and kickers, that kind of thing. And we got full positional sound, surround sound feedback, all of it automatically controlled, dynamic ball hit events, everything is all working. Ball rolling sounds, all of it is working. And then all you got to do is tune it the way you like. And that's it, guys. I don't know if you went from this from beginning to end, but if you did, thanks for sticking around. And I hope this extremely long video has helped you guys out. You can come back to it and use it as a reference for each section as you need it, because I will have chapters. So yeah, thanks again, guys. Definitely use this example table, man. Like, this is definitely the right way to do things. From beginning to end, you'll get it done the right way, and then it'll work for every setup out there, and you'll make so many more people happy as a result. So, anyways, thanks for kicking around, guys, and I hope you use this to greatly improve your Future Pinball table updates or mods or whatever else you want to do. So have fun, guys. Enjoy FizX, enjoy SSF, enjoy dynamic ball sounds, enjoy it all. Wow, I can't believe what it did for this table. Yeah, wow, what a difference. Yeah, I know it sounds like a commercial. So, anyways, I gotta get some sleep, guys. So, good night, and have a good one, and see you in my next video.